I will now call to order the regular City Council meeting of April 26th, 2021. Due to the COVID-19 pandemic, this meeting is being held electronically, and members of council are participating remotely, pursuant to the council's electronic participation policy. Public access to the meeting is available on the local government access channel 8 for Comcast and Xfinity subscribers, and on the city's YouTube channel online. Public access is also available by telephone by utilizing the call-in numbers posted on the meeting agenda. All callers will be muted and may only comment during the times allotted for public comment as indicated on the agenda. If you are on the phone waiting to speak to council and are also watching the meeting on YouTube or channel 8, please know there are a couple of seconds of delay with the live stream. Please turn down your computer or TV volume as we approach the sections of the agenda reserved for public invited to be heard, so you can hear the council meeting on the phone and to prevent background noise when you are unmuted to speak. Those calling in and wishing to speak to council may text 303-450-8757 to sign up to provide public comment. Please note that you must connect to the City Council meeting by calling the separate call-in number listed on the agenda. If you prefer to not text your name to the clerk, please speak up and indicate your desire to provide public comment when prompted at the appropriate times. Once you have been recognized, state your name and address and provide your comments to the council. Thank you for following these directions and for maintaining meeting decorum tonight. Joanna, will you call the roll, please?
Mayor Leidy?
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Wilford?
Here.
Councilmember Witkovich?
Here.
Councilmember Peterson?
Here.
Councilmember Downing?
Here.
Councilmember Brown?
Here.
Councilmember Goff?
Here.
Councilmember Duran-Mullica?
Here.
Councilmember Escobar? Thank you.
Okay. Please stand as you are able and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right. City Manager Geyer, are there any responses to citizen inquiry?
Nothing this evening, Mayor. Thank you.
Do we have any additions or deletions to the agenda?
Mayor, I'd like to pull something off consent agenda if we could, just for discussion.
Sure.
CR 46, please.
CR 46. Great.
Thank you.
Okay. Sorry, I got to get my screens lined up. Okay, we have, oh, I need just a minute. Sorry, I'm off my, okay. So we have two proclamations tonight. The first one is the National Day of Prayer, which is May 6th. So I will share my screen. I can find the right one to share. Nope. Do you see the proclamation or no?
No.
Yeah, that happens. Sorry. Let me try one more time.
Oh, there we go.
Perfect. Thank you. Sorry about that. Okay. Whereas a National Day of Prayer was first observed by members of the Continental Congress in 1775, and President Truman later signed a joint resolution declaring an annual National Day of Prayer in 1952. And whereas prayer is used by people of all faiths to express love, joy, gratitude, and concern, and to ask for wisdom and strength. And whereas meditation is also an important practice for people of many faiths and for non-religious people who seek a pathway to greater mindfulness, humility, and love, and who wish to contemplate and ponder the sacredness of life and a higher power. And whereas our spiritual lives are enriched by connecting with our faith through prayer and meditation. And whereas National Day of Prayer is an opportunity to come together and reinforce our community principles of openness and engagement for all people, regardless of their religion, creed, or beliefs. And whereas, whether based on prescribed techniques and rituals or individual preference, prayer and meditation can be positive and powerful activities to unite, guide, and heal people in times of hardship and tragedy, and to give thanks and acknowledge our relative good fortune in times of peace and prosperity. Now, therefore, I, Meredith Leidy, Mayor of the City of Northglenn, Colorado, do hereby proclaim Thursday, May 6th, 2021, as a National Day of Prayer in the City of Northglenn, and encourage every resident of this community to give thanks for the freedom that allows us to choose and practice our faith as we see fit, and to ask for continued guidance, compassion, and protection for all. Dated at Northglenn, Colorado, this 26th day of April, 2021. So we're hoping that we have representatives from a handful of our faith groups that are in our city. So I believe we have representation from Calvary Community Church, Crossroads Church, Denver North Islamic Center, Good Shepherd Presbyterian Church, Immaculate Heart of Mary Catholic Church, and Northglenn Christian Church. So if anyone is on the phone and wants to unmute and say a few words, you are welcome to do so now. I'm not, Joanna, can you remind me, what is it *6 or something? How do they unmute?
*6.
*6. So if anyone's struggling with that, try *6. Well, I'm not hearing anyone join us. We just want to recognize those institutions and thank them for accepting our proclamation for the National Day of Prayer. Our second one, National Small Business Week, May 2nd through the 8th, 2021. So, and we do have a guest accepting that one today, so I will read it as soon as I find it. Okay. Whereas this country's more than 30 million small businesses create nearly 2 out of 3 new jobs in our economy and spur economic growth in Northglenn and throughout our country. And whereas Northglenn's progress has been driven by small business pioneers who persevere, think big, and take risks. And whereas our startups, home-based, storefront shops, office, service-based, and primary employers are the backbone of Northglenn's economy and the cornerstones of our nation's promise. And whereas small businesses support economies, employ local residents, encourage youth entrepreneurship, engage in philanthropic and civic campaigns, and contribute to the vibrancy of our neighborhoods and business districts. And whereas when we support small businesses, jobs are created and local communities preserve their unique culture. And whereas the City of Northglenn supports, honors, and joins in this national effort to help small businesses do what they do best: grow their business, create jobs, and ensure communities remain as vibrant tomorrow as they are today. Now, therefore, I, Meredith Leidy, Mayor of the City of Northglenn, Colorado, do hereby proclaim the week of May 2nd through May 8th, 2021, as National Small Business Week in the City of Northglenn, and encourage the community to join together in thanking small businesses for their many contributions to the quality of life in our community and the economic well-being of our city. Dated at Northglenn, Colorado, this 26th day of April, 2021. So I believe we have Diane Mapes. Is that how you pronounce your last name?
Yes, it is.
Excellent. You are the owner of Office Evolution Metro North. Thank you for joining us today. Would you like to say a few words?
Yes, thanks for inviting me tonight. I'm honored to accept the proclamation on behalf of all of the Northglenn small businesses. I'm the owner of Office Evolution Metro North. We're located right at 120th and Grant Street. It's just a short walk from City Hall. We're a locally owned and operated small business, and we support other small businesses and entrepreneurs. We provide more than 11,300 square feet of co-working space with 42 fully furnished offices, ranging from micro offices all the way to 4 to 5 team member offices with amenities to support them, as well as a full-time business center manager. We opened in June of last year, right in the middle of COVID. So a lot of sleepless nights over that. But just like all other businesses, it's been challenging starting a new business during a pandemic. But we persevered, and we've got 39 small businesses in our space. Everything from therapists to roofing companies, you name it. In fact, we're busting at the seams, and we are really looking to expand, if possible, into the adjacent space near our center. So it's been awesome watching the new members and these small businesses grow and support each other and cheer each other on. We're thrilled to be part of Northglenn. We love Northglenn community, and we love supporting these small businesses and watching them grow. So on behalf of all the Northglenn businesses, thank you for supporting all small businesses in the community and formally recognizing them during Small Business Week. Thank you.
Thank you for being here.
Thanks.
All right. Council, do you have anything to add? No? Okay. Well, thanks, Diane. All right. Moving into public invited to be heard. This is an opportunity for public comment on any item not set for public hearing. Statements are limited to 5 minutes per speaker. Statements must be related to city business and limited to matters of community interest. Joanna, has anyone signed up to speak tonight?
I don't have anyone signed up in advance of the meeting, but I do see a few phone numbers on the list. So I would just remind them again that if they press *6, they can unmute themselves.
Is anyone on the line to speak to council tonight? Joanna, were there any written comments or voicemails submitted prior to the meeting?
There were not.
Okay, thank you. All right, we'll move into communications. We do have a legislative policy committee update. I'm going to have you guys go first. That is Councilmember Goff tonight.
Yes, I had to kind of fill in tonight. Let's see, pull out my notes here. So our the legislative committee met before this meeting, and we got updates from our experts at the state legislation. Oh my goodness. Anyway, I wasn't prepared to do this, but so we're still waiting on the transportation bill to officially come out. It's very large. It has many pages. We've heard several times that it's going to come out next week, and we've heard that again this week. So I think it's just because it's such a big bill, it's taking people a lot of time to plow through it. The governor signed 2 bills that Northglenn supported. House Bill 1106, which was the safe storage of firearms, and also House Bill 1075, which replaces the term illegal alien with worker without authorization on official documents. We decided to support Senate Bill 242, which is Housing Development Grants Hotels Tenancy Support Program. I know these are such a mouthful. And that is a program that is going to allow, it's expanding a current program to allow other governmental agencies or municipalities to apply for grants to purchase underutilized hotels or motels to be used for housing for homeless people or people experiencing homelessness, excuse me. So that one we're supporting, and we'll just have to wait and see what happens with it. And there are 3 bills that we talked about that we decided to monitor, mostly just because we need to get more information. One was Senate Bill 238, which is the Front Range Rail Bill. One is Senate Bill 246, which was the Electric Utility Promote Beneficial Electrification, which is another mouthful. And that is kind of generally requiring the Public Utilities Commission to promote beneficial electrification more than they have been. And then House Bill 1286, which is Energy Performance for Buildings. And that is a bill that is going to ask, or require, I should say, municipalities to benchmark how much energy large buildings are using in order to collect the data and make better decisions about how to reduce energy use. And so we had some questions about the actual building size requirements and what Northglenn has in our city that would fit that qualification, and so how it might impact us. And that is it in a nutshell. So that's our legislative committee report out. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you. All right, I'm going to go ahead and start again with Ward 1. So Councilmember Peterson.
Good evening, and thank you, Mayor. A few things. The CCPP committee has started meeting. They met 2 weeks ago for their inaugural meeting. And at the inaugural meeting, what the members of the committee did is drew up a list of themes and programs that they wanted to learn more about for some of the training that we're doing right now. The training began last week and is going to continue on tomorrow. We're meeting on consecutive Tuesdays for the next couple months to go through some of these trainings on different aspects of community policing. So it's a great group, and really excited about that. And that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Witkovich.
Thank you, Mayor. I've got a few updates here. Back on April 13th, I attended the Historic Preservation Commission meeting. Work is continuing on the strategic plan. It's really coming together, and I believe the commission will be reviewing a full draft at our next meeting in May, and then hopefully we'll have that all approved by June. I wanted to pass along that the commission decided to go forward with Old Fashioned Christmas, so that will be happening in December. And on April 15th, Councilmember Peterson and I had our Ward 1 virtual meeting. It went well. It wasn't too well attended, as our meetings usually aren't, but I think we had about 9 or 10 people at most. So we were happy to answer questions and listen to all the great ideas from our Ward 1 residents. On April 20th, I attended North Metro Fire Rescue Board meeting. It was their meetings always go super long and they're always very informative. But I did want to pass along that we received huge props from Chief Ramos about our fireworks enforcement. He was very impressed with what we were able to accomplish last year, and he just wanted to make sure that we knew that. And so they're looking forward to our partnership this July 4th. I had a suggestion by Director Long that we do some sort of presentation that focused on fire sprinkler safety, because we had a couple of fires recently. I don't think they were in Northglenn, but they were in the district, and sprinklers made all the difference. So we're looking at planning a presentation with Chief Ramos and possibly from staff from the North Metro Fire Rescue District. Let's see. Councilmember Peterson and I received an email this past week from the Northglenn Youth Incorporated. And so I just wanted to mention they informed us, I had no idea that it was even a thing, but they informed us that a Ward 1 resident, a Northglenn High School student, Jessica Tomshak, received a $5,000 scholarship. So I just want to make sure I mention that and say congratulations to her. That's very exciting. And I think just the last thing that I wanted to bring up was I just kind of wanted to elevate the idea of us as a council doing some more diversity training. I feel like we were all really excited about that last summer, but it's kind of fallen off. And, you know, perhaps we didn't have the best experience with the last facilitator. So I'd kind of like, you know, to bring that up, see if people want to talk about that, possibly do that sometime soon. Just kind of fell off, and I wanted to make sure we get that back on our radar. And that's all I've got this evening. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Brown?
That's the wrong order. It's always Joyce first. I'm sure that you're all aware that NERA has purchased the building on 112th and Washington. Very excited about that. I noticed that half the building was boarded up the other day. I try to avoid that area because of the construction on Irma. So I've been swiveling through the neighborhoods. So I didn't see if the rest of the boards were covered. So that's pretty exciting. Not a whole lot that I can talk about, but we did purchase the land. The other thing that I did last week was the Youth Commission. And those guys, they do, I swear, they just amaze me. We spent our meeting last week they spent their meeting working on their web link with resource links to it that are going to set, you know, kids can go on and go to games or go to help and all kinds of things. And they're just doing a fantastic job with it. So hopefully we get that up and running soon. Other than that, I'm sure I got a new Christmas tree. Yahoo! That makes 47. He won't listen tonight. So that's pretty exciting. That's my week in a nutshell.
Thank you. Councilmember Downing?
Thank you, Mayor, but I don't have anything this evening. Thank you.
Okay. Councilmember Goff, did you have anything to add?
Yes, I did attend a couple of other meetings last week. The diversity board met and we had a guest speaker, which was our very own city clerk, Joanna Small, who came to talk to the board about just local elections in general, including the boards and commissions of Northglenn, how, you know, just kind of understanding how the process works for getting people on those boards or maybe elected in some capacity somewhere, so that we can work on increasing diversity in those areas. Let's see. If you haven't noticed already, there's been some information put out that we are hosting a Pride Fest this June. So you can be looking in the connection or on social media for more information about that. We're hoping that will be a huge success and it'll be our first annual Pride Fest. We have a health equity subcommittee that has been working on some different ideas. And they wanted to make sure that everybody in Northglenn knows that vaccines are available to Northglenn residents quite easily. If you're not sure how to do it or what to do about it, you can call the senior center. Seniors in particular should know that they'll have a resource there helping them make appointments and helping them find information. And we just wanted to encourage everyone to get their vaccine. Let's see. Well, we have some other things in the works, but we're not sure when we're going to do them or even how we're going to pull it off if we do it this year. So I'll just say we met. The CC4CA met on April 21st, and there were some different bills that we looked at that I don't have my notes handy right now, but concerning environmental issues. So we did have some discussion about what's coming down the pike. The Anythink Libraries Committee board, I should say, the board met, and they have, of course, all kinds of exciting things going on. They're planning their My Summer Meeting program for this summer, and they're going to have a focus on some different artists teaching different classes. They also have contracted to have an artist or different artists. I guess it's one artist creating 6 different pieces of art for the different library locations. You could be looking for that. They have finished installing touchless doors on all their buildings. So that's a safety measure that they wanted to make sure everybody knows about. Oh, the other thing that's really interesting, I thought, was that they have now purchased a variety of non-traditional materials that people can check out, such as, and this is not an all-inclusive list, pickleball sets, snowshoes, rock hounding kits, and kites. So if you're interested in checking something like that out to use like for a weekend or for a short time, your library is the place to go. And then I also want to kind of follow up what Council Member Witkovich had brought up, that the Northglenn Youth Incorporated awarded a scholarship to Award 3 resident Liz DeCanini, and she's a senior at Northglenn High School, so she was also awarded one of those scholarships for $5,000, and I wanted to congratulate her. That's it for me tonight. Thank you.
That's awesome. Councilmember Duran Malika.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. So a couple updates from me, transportation related. So for those who know, there is a 144 Flex Ride service that we have. So anybody who needs to get up to like Orchard or St. Anthony's North up there or Amazon, there wasn't typically service that went past 120th, but now there is. It's a Flex Ride service. It's actually being expanded from 6 days a week, Monday through Saturday, to including Sunday now. So it's going to be a 7-day-a-week service. The reason why this whole Flex Ride service came about is because they needed transportation workforce transportation. Essentially, there's people who needed to get up to their job. They took RTD as far as it could go, and then some were biking or trying to find other solutions, diverted RTD routes to get up there. And so it's a very popular service. So it's good that it's expanding up to 7 days a week. So for those folks who do, need to rely on it for a ride to get to work, or if you want to go up there for shopping or, whatever other reasons, the Flex Ride is actually expanding service. So it's great. The other opportunity that I had is on the 16th, I attended the NADA retreat. And it was a really good conversation. Really what our focus is to get the group together, talk about our mission, talk about the work that we're doing. And there was a huge push from the communities this year to really include kind of clean energy, climate policy into what NADA does, given that transportation is such a huge contributor to greenhouse gases. And there's so much work going on in the region. We felt like as a group, we also needed to include that work. So some things that we're looking at trying to do over this next year is really kind of doing a gap analysis for looking at transit and mobility needs for our region. So working together to try and figure out what those needs are and what could be a regional solution for us. Expanding NADA's region out to the east, so we don't actually include all of the Adams County communities. So is that something that could work? And then of course, staying heavily focused and engaged on the Front Range passenger rail conversation as it continues to evolve and update. So those are some of the work that we're going to be doing in NADA over the next year, which I'm excited about. Other than that, the only other thing that I have to report is that Catherine and I are having a board meeting on May 26th. So we're actually going to attempt to do this in person. We're excited to actually see people again. So we're really looking forward to it. And so as communication gets out, I hope people are really excited about it too. So that's all I got. Thank you.
Can I ask you a question going back to the Flex Ride piece? I had heard about it was supposed to go from the Park and Ride to Amazon. That was the focus, and that was the limited service. That conversation, I think, was gaining traction right before COVID. And then they restricted all of their service. When you say it's up and running, is the typical service up and running again, or is it just that specific one?
No, it's actually a whole loop that it does from the Park and Ride up, and it includes stops at Orchard and the hospital as well as Amazon. So yeah, it's up and running and expanding.
Okay, so that's the new. I can call Vince, I guess, but that's the new one. But a lot of our residents use the typical Northglenn Thornton one that operates within the map, right? So a resident could take it to the doctor, a resident could take it to the grocery store.
Okay,
but they limited that. They cut service way back during COVID for obvious reasons. And so I was just wondering if that service was up and running again.
Oh, I see what you mean. So I don't know. I think that would be a good Vince question. I'm not sure if what is their plan to get to full capacity again? Because I'm not sure even what they're operating at right now, and how much further they need to go and what's the timeline of that going to look like. So yeah, no, that's a good point. Just the general flex ride service, not necessarily this 144th flex ride.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I think, is there an RTD info meeting soon this week or next week?
There is a meeting, I think it's actually this Friday. It's a Friday coming up. Hold on, let me look at my calendar real quick. I could get back to you on the date.
Yeah, I think I saw it in my
meeting. Yeah.
Okay.
There's two, Mayor. There's two meetings coming up for the Northwest, and then there's a meeting specifically for the N line on Thursday. I do have my meeting with Director Busick on Wednesday morning, so I could check in with him on this topic if you'd like me to.
Yeah, that'd be great. Yeah, I was just wondering because it got a lot of use.
Yeah.
So thank you. Councilmember Esquivel.
Thank you, Mayor. I don't have a lot to report other than both Jenny and I were informed by the Northglenn Youth Incorporated that the Ward 4 candidate or the Ward 4 recipient of the $5,000 scholarship was Lily Cunnis, our very own. So congratulations to her. I was reflecting on my objective. Corey, I see you thinking. I can see your brain moving from here. I was, after last regular meeting, I was reflecting on my objection to the term illegal alien in our contractual obligations. And when I approached you about it, you told me, or do you remember what you told me? We told you we can't do nothing about it. That's a state statute. And I said, well, then we'll have to change the statute. And happy to report that 5 years later, the statute has been changed. So originally Steve Lebsock ran that bill, but at that time we didn't have control of both the House and the Senate. So had some struggle getting it through, but I was just reflecting on that, Corey, and what I came up with is that even though it's not, we're not able to do whatever we're not able to do, so we just keep pushing the envelope until we get it done. Don't quit. If you believe in something, work hard, keep pushing the envelope, and guess what? Sometimes you win. Thank you, Corey. Thank you, Mayor.
Mayor Pro Tem Wilford.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just a few updates from me this evening. First is I joined Councilmember Duran Mullica in participating in the NADA retreat. Unfortunately, I was only able to join for the first hour because the Colorado Municipal League's Policy Committee had a meeting that intersected with that one. And so I was able to join the Policy Committee meeting, and the positions that you heard from the Legislative Committee earlier are consistent with the positions that were taken by CML. So all good news there. I also want to share my congratulations to Lily on her scholarship. So absolutely deserved and exciting to see. I know she's been just really involved with our Youth Commission for so long. And I'm just glad to see her get the recognition that she deserves. Let's see. And then the last thing I wanted to highlight is that Councilmember Esquivel and I will be hosting our third ward meeting of the year, and unfortunately his last, on Thursday, May 13th. hopefully the baby will cooperate so that we can have that meeting, but it will be held virtually. And we are planning on providing a thank you and a celebrating Councilmember Esquivel's service and making sure that we send him on his way in the best way that we can. So looking forward to seeing residents. Postcards should be going out shortly with all of the other details around some of the items that we'll be discussing. And I hope folks are able to join. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Okay, I have just a couple of things. Met with the Metro Mayors is still meeting twice a month instead of once a month. So met with them, attended the Mile High Flood District board. I was able to attend the very first CCPP board meeting, and I was just beyond grateful for that opportunity. The diversity on that group, the professionalism, the intentionality, that is an awesome rock star group. So yeah, that was very fun to participate in. And then I've been fielding a lot of resident inquiries. I won't call them complaints. I'll call them inquiries. Lots of questions about a couple of topics that I do think are important enough to raise because they seem to be recurring. Let me put it that way. So the first one we talked about last time is the wastewater plant. As it becomes warmer, there's more smell there and residents are reaching out again. And they're Thornton residents because of where our plant is located, but I think it's important. And I just want to publicly thank City Manager Geyer and your whole team for putting together such a factual response to the residents. It's very helpful for them to get the full picture of why everything is happening up there. And then lengthy conversation with a resident that I promised I would bring forward tonight because he did not feel comfortable coming. I sort of invited him to the public, invited to be heard, because I really felt like what his concerns were really important for all of council to hear. He did not feel comfortable doing that, so I did promise him that I would elevate his concerns. And it's a broad citywide concern of speeding and traffic enforcement and school zones. And we've heard this before, but I get emails from all 4 wards about speeding. And so we do have our traffic team. And I did mention that I would bring his concerns specifically to Chief May, so I know he's on the call. But it is something that we need to consistently think through because it's super dangerous. And we had a recent car accident that, may or may not have been related to speeding. People are driving way too fast and it's just not safe. And then I think it's seasonal that after winter, right? The thaw and the freeze, our roads just fall apart. And then residents are noticing them. And so even though, we had our presentation recently by what roads are going to get fixed in which order, and I really appreciated Kent following up with council and giving us specifics on sections and times. I heard from 3 residents this week, and there are sections of our roads that are really damaging people's vehicles. And to hear that it's going to be 2022 before sections get fixed is really discouraging, and it's a hard one to explain to residents. So just to kind of elevate that third concern for all of us. We know, I'm super excited about any road improvement project that is coming, but to know that certain sections are, a year or 2 down the road is really disheartening to residents. So those were my big ones. I know it is, milestone season, I guess. My daughter turned 18, which I can't believe. So if those of you can tell me how to parent an adult child, I definitely need help with that. That's a new journey. I sort of would prefer to go back to potty training if it was up to me, because I am better at that. so that's just fun. But 18 is a whole new journey. So that filled up my last couple weeks. All right, City Manager Geyer.
Just a few things for council this evening, Mayor. First, I'll do a check-in. Councilmember Witkovich had elevated a question of whether or not council wants to do additional diversity training. So if council wants to provide me with consensus to move forward with figuring that out, I'm happy to do that if consensus exists. I see.
Quick question, Heather.
Yes.
Can we make sure that we do not have the same person that we had last time?
Yes, so I'll provide a new option for council to consider.
I've sat through, I've been to 2 so far, but I think it's the same woman that did them for the Youth Commission that did it for Nura. Did Nura do one?
So 2 different people. We would, one option that I have for council is to work with Monica with the Equity Project. And she's the one who's currently doing the board and commission training. And so there was a training last week, and I was going to highlight that there's an upcoming training this Wednesday that you can sit in on as well. But what we would do is Rupa and I would work with her, and we'd design the training based on the work that's been done up to date and really customize it for council.
Okay. That was my only question, and I'm for it.
I think I got all the thumbs up that I need.
Yeah, Mayor Pro Tem Wilford, did you want to add?
Yeah, I don't know if you're taking suggestions, but the woman who led the diversity or the DICE listening session was really excellent. And I don't know if she does training or works with
That's
council.
Monica from the Equity Project.
Okay.
Yeah.
Perfect. All right. Thank you.
Yeah.
Did you have anything else?
I do, just a couple other things. So I mentioned that there's another training for board and commission members this Wednesday at 5:30 p.m. So feel free to reach out to Rupa or I, or look at the website for details, call in details for that training. Pfizer vaccines are available at City Hall this Wednesday. That's April 28th. They'll be available between 9 a.m. and 3 p.m. And you'll need to make an appointment in advance by calling the Senior Center. I believe Councilmember Goff elevated this opportunity. So I will share that phone number to the Senior Center. It's 303-450-8801. And appointments are on a first come, first served basis. But this is a great opportunity for anyone 16 years of age or older to receive a vaccination. Last update for council. Wanted to make you aware that Rupa and I are just in the beginning stages of organizing a hate crimes forum. This will be an educational community forum. We're partnering with the District Attorney's Office, FBI, U.S. District Attorney, and Department of Homeland Security. Hopefully I got those 2 federal agencies correct. To put together a panel. This forum will likely be a hybrid of in-person and virtual sometime in June, to provide an educational opportunity for community members on what hate crimes are, the legal ins and outs, kind of what local process looks like. It'll be a multiple panel. Again, with probably representation from the DA's office, a representative from the FBI, likely Chief May. I think we're going to try to get you involved, Mayor Leidy. So a really good opportunity in light of the fact that we have seen an increase in issues here locally, most recently with some white supremacist propaganda that was put at one of our parks. So we're working closely with the DA's office and more details to come on that. So I think that's it for tonight. There's a lot going on, but a lot of good things underway. So thanks.
City Clerk Small, do you have anything?
I do have just a couple quick items. I saw an article last week. I think there was one published in the Westward and then one online with History Colorado. And that was regarding History Colorado publishing 2 ledgers from the Ku Klux Klan online that they have had for quite some time. And with the release of that information online, they are also holding an online roundtable event that's free to the public. And so I wanted to mention that event. I plan on attending on Wednesday evening of this week. The event is intended to examine information regarding white supremacy, while also learning from powerful Colorado stories of individual and collective resistance. So if anyone would like that information shared, I'd be happy to forward that on. And then as Councilmember Goff mentioned, I did have the pleasure of attending the Diversity, Inclusivity, and Social Equity Board meeting last Tuesday. And in addition to presenting information about boards and commissions and the local election process, I also provided them information on the city's 2019 ballot question regarding gender neutral language in the city charter that did not, the voters did not pass that question. And the intent was to provide the DICE board with information so they might carry that forward if possible in the future if they decide to do that. But I wanted to mention the board had great questions about all of the information, and their excitement about all of these different issues is so exciting to see. So hopefully I'm invited back at some point. And that's all I have. Thank you.
City Attorney Hoffman, how are you tonight?
I'm doing well, Madam Mayor. Good evening, Madam Mayor and members of council. I don't have anything now, but I will certainly have plenty later. So I'm not done yet.
That is true. You're here for the long haul. All right. Okay. Well, I think we've moved through communications. We are moving to consent. And I believe the motion will not include item D.
Move for approval.
Second.
Joanna, will you call the vote, please?
Mayor Leidy?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Wilford?
Yes.
Councilmember Whitkovich?
Yes.
Councilmember Peterson?
Yes.
Councilmember Downing?
Yes.
Councilmember Brown?
Yes.
Councilmember Goff?
Yes.
Councilmember Duran Mollica?
Yes.
Councilmember Escobar?
Yes.
I will close that vote and the consent agenda passes unanimously.
Okay, so Joanna, can you read the title for CR 46?
A resolution approving a memorandum of understanding between the City of Northglenn and the Adams 12 5-star schools for notification and reporting regarding the School Resource Officer Program.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and hand it over to Councilmember Mollica. I'm guessing you pulled it off for discussion.
I did, yeah. Well, and really what I wanted to do is raise awareness of residents about what this, resolution is actually trying to do, and to get a little bit more information, I think, from Commander Waltz, which I see she's magically appears as needed. I love that. And so just to understand, is the data that's now going to be reported to the district, I see within 10 days of an event, is that something that's previously been done by the police department, and then this is new? And then what kind of spurred this? Just curious about how that whole thing worked out.
So this is not new information that we're providing. We've been providing it for several years now. This is just something that the school district asked us to formalize in writing this information sharing process. And they did ask for one additional piece that we hadn't been reporting, although I think we've been telling them about it, was if we had to handcuff a juvenile on property. So there's a state statute that requires the reporting to the school district. That's been in effect since 2015, 2016. So we've been doing it that time frame. It's just they wanted something more formalized, and then also to formalize it between all the agencies to how the reporting was going to happen and when. So this is just formalizing something we've already been doing.
Awesome. So that's fantastic. My next question actually might be for Heather. I'm not sure if, is there any way that perhaps council or maybe even the CCPP could get like an aggregate overview of this data. Of course, I don't want any, student information or anything that would be identifiable to a student, if I said that appropriately. But, I think that, we've had a lot of community members interested in our partnership with the school district and how those school resource officers work, how they're trained. I've gotten questions like that. I'm just curious, where would someone be able to find more information if they wanted to?
Commander Waltz, did you want to respond, or do you want me to jump in with a simple, we can provide council with that information, either follow up via email or schedule it as a short discussion at a future study session?
Yeah.
It's really up to council in terms of how you'd like that information. So please provide guidance.
Okay, well, I was actually just thinking including it in the report that we currently already get from that. Maybe that would be the easiest.
The monthly
just something
report?
Yeah, just something that way it's there if folks want to take a look at it. And then as for like a community transparency thing, I'm not sure of the community, like the monthly reports, are those shared with, the community as a whole, or how would a resident, learn more about that? Or perhaps maybe if it's inappropriate, then maybe the CCPP could review it or something like that. Don't want to step on any, privacy issues here.
Well, at this point, it is not shared with the community. It's the reporting to the school district, and then we do report it to the Division of Criminal Justice. That's also required by the statute. So that information is reported out in those areas, but we aren't making that available to the public at this point. Again, with the juveniles, there is obviously some concern with privacy issues on that. So we'd have to look at that. But some of that information, I'm sure that we could probably look at to be able to share as well.
Okay, great. Well, and those are my two questions. Really, I wanted to highlight this conversation with the community and then talking about how, we're in this relationship with Adams 12. It's a very important relationship for this community. And, we want to, obviously there's information being collected about what our school resource officers are involved in. So that's all I wanted. If anybody else has any questions, feel free to jump in.
Councilmember Goff.
Thank you, Mayor. I think the questions that Councilmember Mullica has asked are great questions, and I would like to sort of just tag on to that. I'm hoping that at some point we'll reach the stage where somebody in our city, whether it's the Diversity Board or CCPP or Council, looks at this data and can make some an analysis about equity issues, I guess is what I'm trying to get at here. So I do hope that we are able to look at this information over, a long period of time. I guess we don't have anything in the past maybe to compare it to, or maybe we do. I don't know how long you've been, you keep those kind of records that we could use as a comparison. But I think it would be really interesting to see, at the end of the year, comparing this year to last year or something like that, or maybe school year. But yeah, I think this information could be really useful in the future. And I'm glad the questions were asked because I wasn't completely sure what was new about what this memorandum was trying to get at. So thank you.
Mayor Pro Tem Wolford.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just a quick comment that I think that last August when we talked about school resource officers, that there was sort of a commitment and consensus to bring this conversation back to council when we looked at renewing their MOU in the future. And I'm thankful that Councilmember Duran Mullica highlighted this memorandum, because I think a lot of the information and data that's going to be collected could be just really helpful for the conversation that we may have later in the year. Thank you.
Commander Waltz, can I ask a question? So I'm looking at the list. Are these only school-based incidents, or are they like a Friday night, Saturday night? Are they just Adams 12 student police contact?
No, if it happens on school grounds or in a school vehicle, we also are required to report it. So if they're at a different stadium, playing a game or something like that, but it's one of our students and the police are involved, then we will report that as well.
Well, that's what I'm wondering is, do we separate it from like a school-based event versus just a community event, but it's an Adams 12 student?
I think it just basically says if we take any action with the student on school grounds or at a school event. So if some other community event is there and they're not school students doing the event, then we don't have to report it.
Okay, so for example, this isn't gonna collect all of the speeding tickets that teenagers get. This is not gonna collect all of the minor in possession charges if you run into them at a house party.
Correct, it will not.
Okay, just checking. Because when I think back, as Mayor Pro Tem mentioned, I thought we were also gonna connect this with discipline data from Adams 12. Is that something, Heather, that we're still going to talk about?
I need to meet with Chief and Commander Waltz and figure out what that conversation looks like.
Okay.
So I recall the ask. Let me follow up with them tomorrow and we'll figure out how best to bring that discussion back.
Okay.
Along with reporting out on the piece that was asked about tonight.
Excellent. Rupa, welcome. I see your hand.
Yeah, thank you. Just wanted to answer the question about the CCPP if they're going to be discussing this topic. So school resource officers was one of the topics that we gave as an option for the mini academy, but based on the survey results, it's not part of the mini academy, but because we still had some interest, we're going to bring it to CCPP as just a standalone topic after the mini academy is completed. And as a reminder, all the CCPP meetings are public meetings and they are recorded.
Nice, thank you. That's perfect. Any other questions or comments on CR 46? Joanna, will you call the vote, please?
Mayor Leidy?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Wilford?
Yes.
Councilmember Whitkovich?
Yes.
Councilmember Peterson?
Yes.
Councilmember Downing?
Yes.
Councilmember Brown?
Yes.
Councilmember Goff?
Yes.
Councilmember Duran Malika?
Yes.
Councilmember Escobar?
Yes.
I will close that vote and CR 46 passes unanimously.
All right, moving to CR 49. Joanna, will you read the title, please?
A resolution authorizing the city manager to issue a purchase order to Working Spaces in an amount not to exceed $324,831.47 for the purchase of furniture, fixtures, and equipment for the Northglenn Civic Center Phase 1 implementation project, and authorizing contingency in the amount of $25,168.53.
Move for approval.
Second.
All right, Amanda Peterson, our Director of Parks, Recreation, and Cultural Services, is here to provide a summary. Hi, Amanda.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. So this resolution is regarding the selection of a furniture vendor for the new Recreation Center, Senior Center, and Theater. We did go through a formal RFP process. We received 2 proposals for this one. Working Spaces submitted a complete proposal with pricing that's in alignment with our furniture budget and as we expected to see for each of the for individual pieces as well. The second vendor that submitted a proposal only included pricing on a small number of pieces and did not exhibit that they were a qualified vendor. The team has reviewed that Working Spaces proposal and believes that they are fully qualified to provide the furniture as specified in the RFP. And as per the RFP, the vendor would provide nearly all the furniture in the new facility. There's a few exceptions to that with a few things that we can get at a lower cost that we'll be purchasing in bulk, like there's some chairs or tables for outdoor spaces, as well as some really specialized pieces like some cabinetry that goes behind the sound booth in the theater. Other than that, they would provide kind of everything else. So everything from office space furniture to lobbies to community room, tables and chairs and cabinetry that isn't built into the facility. Approval of CR 49 would authorize the city manager to approve a purchase order for working spaces for approximately $325,000, and then a contingency for a little over $25,000 that would allow for minor changes in the scope as we're placing those orders, for a total expenditure that would not exceed $350,000. And staff recommends approval of CR 49 as presented.
Thank you. Councilmember Goff?
Yes, I just have a quick question. I was looking at this itemized list, and I mean, I'm sure it's just me that's kind of behind the times, but some of this furniture is very expensive. I just wondered how long is it expected to last? Like a chair in a lobby, you know, one of those chairs that people just sit in while they're waiting to talk to people. I mean, do you have any? I'm sure you must have some kind of an idea of how long these things last.
So I would say it varies depending on the piece. But lobby furniture typically for us has had a pretty long useful life. It's not something that we replace with any sort of regularity. Whereas say a folding chair in a classroom space may need to be replaced much more often. I would say even on the lower end, that furniture is in the 10-year range. At the upper end, well beyond that, I don't know that I could put a specific time frame on it, but lobby furniture definitely is, or office furniture definitely isn't something we replace with any regularity.
Okay, well, I kind of assumed that, but I just wanted to kind of verify because I don't spend that much on my furniture, but it probably doesn't last that long either. So thank you.
Was muted. Councilmember Brown.
Amanda, what did we budget for the furniture out of the rec center? I can't remember.
It was right at $350,000. And each of those pieces, as they were being added or developed and added to the list, the team had a pretty good idea of how much each piece should cost. So we were pleased but not surprised that the proposal came in alignment with those expected costs.
What about the costs for the things that they don't include? So those obviously aren't going to hit our furniture budget for the theater or anything else, the chains, whatever else you were talking about. Where is that going to hit?
There's an overall FF&E budget that has some of those miscellaneous items identified in it.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions for Amanda?
Madam Mayor, I have a question.
Oh, I don't see you. There you are. Sorry. Mayor Pro Tem.
Thank you. Amanda, I feel like we've had this conversation before, but can you remind me if there are going to be any pieces of furniture that currently exist in our rec center that are going to be moved over to the new facility, or are we buying everything brand new and leaving the rest?
Most of the furniture is brand new. We haven't, most of it is reaching the end of its useful life, if not beyond. There are some things we are moving from the current facility into the new facility, but it's things like some weight room equipment that was newer, some of the furniture in the preschool classrooms, like the play furniture that is still in great shape and has quite a bit of useful life left. But tables and chairs and couches, I think the only piece I can think of that's moving is there's a couch that's currently in the senior center that we're going to use in the green room of the new facility.
Okay, perfect. Thank you for that background. Part of the reason I asked the question is I know that residents may be wondering what's going to happen to all of that stuff and if we're moving it or not moving it. And I just think it's important to recognize that there are some things we're able to take with us because they're, going to last for a bit of time and we can still use them. And there are many, many things that have just reached the end of their useful life. So thank you, Amanda. I appreciate it.
You're welcome. And it does bring up a good point that we're going through right now, an inventory list and identifying whether items can be donated or auctioned, moved to the new facility with the assistance of a mover, or just have reached the end of their useful life and are ready to be disposed of. So staff's compiling that list currently, and then we'll work through. I did get some feedback from Jason already about our process to either donate or auction some of those items to make sure that we're documenting that correctly.
All right, Joanna, will you call the vote, please? Oh, yes, there's a vote.
Mayor Leidy?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Wilford?
Yes.
Councilmember Witkovich?
Yes.
Councilmember Peterson?
Yes.
Councilmember Downing?
Yes.
Councilmember Brown?
Yes.
Councilmember Goff?
Yes.
Councilmember Duran Mullica?
Yes.
Councilmember Esquivel?
Yes.
I will close that vote, and CR 49 passes unanimously.
All right, CR 50. Joanna, will you read the title, please?
A resolution imposing retail tobacco business license fees pursuant to section 18-19-9 of the Northglenn Municipal Code.
Move for approval.
Second.
All right, our masterful city clerk will provide a summary of this item.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. I'm sure you'll remember that last December, Council adopted an ordinance to regulate the sale of retail tobacco products in the city and to also create a local licensing program. So as the title mentioned, section 18-19-9 of the ordinance requires that the license fees be set by separate resolution of the council. So staff has prepared the license fees that are outlined in the staff memo and then also within CR 50. Those are based on a cost analysis of staff time that is anticipated to be required to administer the licensing program. We also surveyed surrounding cities in the metro area, and the fees are comparable to other cities. Staff recommends approval of CR 50, and I'm happy to answer any questions you might have.
Where's Councilmember Brown? Do you have any questions?
So what, you think I'm troubled?
No, I was just anticipating a question.
No, I was reading the line on here that says Lakewood requires non-cigarette tobacco licenses. Does our license cover vape shops too?
It does. The vape products are nicotine products that are included in the definition of tobacco products.
I wonder what they mean by non-cigarette tobacco licenses. How weird.
It is literally what that says, which is a little different, but their definition includes all of the tobacco products that ours does, I believe, but they actually have an exception for cigarettes.
So what is the process after tonight? You know, we vote and approve it, right? How much time do they have before they have to get them? And how are they notified?
So the licensees were notified a couple times when council was considering the ordinance to implement the licensing program and to also approve the regulations. So they've had notice. They were invited to provide input on the regulations themselves. This setting the fees is kind of a secondary action that we need council to do. So once the fees are set, staff's going to monitor and participate in the state meetings that are happening in May. The state is calling a working group where they're going to discuss their licensing program, local coordination for compliance checks, and also their state fee amount. So we'll monitor the information that comes out of those meetings. And it's staff's intention that we're going to try to coordinate the processes as closely as we can, because businesses will be required to get both a local city license and that state license. And whoever goes first, whether it's the city or the state, will need to coordinate with each other to guarantee that the business's license expiration date syncs up, if you will. That's probably the wrong way to say it, but we don't want to put an undue burden on the businesses to have to monitor two different license expiration dates and processes. So we're anticipating that more notification will go to the businesses sometime in May to provide as much information as we can. I know the state's deadline, the last I heard, was that businesses must obtain that state license by July 1st. So we're treating that as pretty much our deadline as well, just because we're anticipating that the processes will align with each other.
Okay, so it would be effective July 1st, tentatively July 1st, these fees. So say a new 7-Eleven were to open or a new gas station or something. They wouldn't have to pay these fees until July?
No, the fees actually become effective upon council approval.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's it.
Councilmember Duran Malika.
Just a comment, really. I appreciate staff putting this together and doing the analysis, because I think that was a missing piece that we needed previously. And with doing the survey of the other cities around us, I think that's really helpful too. So really straightforward. Thank you.
Any other questions or comments for Joanna? Okay, will you call the vote, please?
Mayor Leidy?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Wilford?
Yes.
Councilmember Whitkovich?
Yes.
Councilmember Peterson?
Yes.
Councilmember Downing?
Yes.
Councilmember Brown?
Yes.
Councilmember Goff?
Yes.
Councilmember Duran Malika?
Yes.
Councilmember Escobar?
Yes.
I will close that vote, and CR 50 passes unanimously. Thank you.
All right, we have 3 discussion items tonight. Amanda Peterson is back for the Civic Center Master Plan Phase 1 April update.
All right. Hello again. If you don't mind sharing your screen, I did include some photos again this month for you. The project does continue to move forward at a great pace. FCI is really maintaining both the schedule and the budget really well. They continue to communicate, really just do a great job of communicating throughout the team between the architect and the contractor and our internal project team. It was really great to be able to see a few of you out at the tours earlier this month. I think I see Councilmember Goff there in that theater photo. There was a request for a makeup date for a couple of you that weren't able to make it. So I did send out an email last week with a makeup date, and I heard back from both Council Members Brown and Duran Malika. So I sent you both an appointment today for next Thursday at 1:30. And if anybody else would like to join us, please just let me know and we can add you right into there. We can go through the photos though for really quickly. That was the theater. We've got rigging going into place. You can see with this theater and senior center entrance, the Oco skin, which is that kind of wood look product. It's not actually wood, that's going in around the entry. It looks really great. And it's one of the elements that carries through into the indoor portion of the building in both entryways. So really kind of is a key architectural element and kind of that little piece of continuity throughout the building. You can see down below, we've got the leisure pool going in. That's the lazy river with the heated jetted seating area in the forefront. You can see the colorful panels going up above. Those do play a really important role. They're actually sound attenuation panels. So they're bright and colorful, but they also help dampen that sound in the large space. Just a little sampling of tile, drywall, and paint and some of the colors that are going in throughout the space. And then this photo is taken from the running track that's above the gymnasium. You can see, I think since last time you saw some of these images, the basketball backboards have been put in. And then this photo is taken in the front lobby space. You can see that same roof line does not have the Oco skin yet, but it will be there. Windows are in. They're starting to work on that fitness patio that'll go out and be facing Festival Lawn with EB Rains in the distance. And with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions that anyone has.
It is beautiful and exciting and on time and on budget. So thank you for your hard work.
Yes. And so if anybody would like to join us on that tour on Thursday at 1:30, please just reach out and let me know. Have a great night.
Right. Thanks. All right, the next item, the 2021 Council Communications. We have Diana Wilson, our Director of Communications, is here to present the plan. And I will pull up your presentation now.
Great.
How are you?
I'm good. Mayor, City Council, good to see you today. Thanks so much for having me. I did want to mention that the RTD meeting is on Thursday, 5 o'clock. It is virtual. We posted it on social media and we'll do a reminder this week. So just a flashback to communications at the beginning of the meeting. All right. So hopefully most of you remember, but shortly after I started, I want to say in February after I started, I had a presentation that mimics the 2-page handout, the attachment number 1, to kind of line out, hey, I met with all of you. This is kind of the feedback I got. This is direction that we're going to go. So here we are. I've now been on board for 1.5 years. There are days where it seems like yesterday, and there are days where I feel like I've been here forever. But just want to say overall, you guys it's an excellent city. Northglenn is really an excellent city. Very responsive to the residents, very engaged residents. And I know traffic is a huge issue, but I have to be honest with you, when you live in a town where your biggest complaint is about traffic, you live in a really nice town. So just to put that in perspective when people are calling and probably not very happy about speeding in their neighborhood. But when you look at the big picture, really nice city, Northglenn. So if you'll move to my first slide, I will jump in. So what platforms, just a reminder, we have the connection, our monthly mailer goes to every address, our website, social media, we have Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and we also have our YouTube channel, which we're on right now. And last but not least, Nextdoor. We don't have a lot of control over Nextdoor. That platform is very controlled, other than we can put up posts there. Like I can't really measure a lot of statistics or things like that. We have the internal city managers report every 2 weeks. Channel 8, if you're a Comcast subscriber, you can watch Channel 8, or you can also always see all the things that we put on Channel 8 on YouTube. And then we have direct mail. So those are the main ways that we communicate about city council activities. And I should specify, we are talking about communicating on your behalf. That is what we're talking about right now. So as a recap of changes, we changed the legislative recap in the connection shortly after I started to do a little bit more, instead of just treating everything equally, trying to treat the things that, some things you just have to do, or they're updates, or, that kind of thing, and try and pull out the issues that are of interest to the community, or you guys have been very involved in, or things that are happened, or why we're addressing this issue, like what is happening in town. So we changed the legislative recap to be a little bit more like, hey, this is what happened. Here's the most important things. Here's how you can have a voice. And also, we would encourage you to come to meetings, speak at meetings, reach out to your council members. We also tied everything in the connection to the legislative plan that council approved in 2019 and is very soon going to update. So everything that's in the connection other than what's on the cover, we tie back to our strategic plan to kind of demonstrate that the things that we're doing in the city, they're not just all willy-nilly. We really do have a game plan, so trying to communicate that to our residents. Meet your council members is another thing that we did in the connection. And then video, we expanded. We have was the mayor's monthly minute. Now it's the mayor's video when we have a chance because of COVID. And then we did we encourage you to do a ward tour. We have like one done and another one recorded right now. So we can jump to the next slide. Other changes, website, we changed the city council member page to engage with city council. We added that section down at the bottom. So any meetings you guys have coming up are captured. I do it on an annual basis. So last year I had all the meetings you had last year and added new ones as we had them. This year I took off 2020 and they're all the 2021 ones. So even if it's in the past, it's still listed what happened. And if you had a presentation or you recorded it or whatever, I linked to that. We have a virtual town hall page. So what we have on our virtual town hall are two things. If we have a telephone town hall, it streams on that page, and any ongoing conversation that we've had. So for example, we did the COVID, how are we going to spend the CARES Act dollars? So that was on the Engage page. How do we feel about the tobacco about marijuana being delivered to homes. Those conversations are on the virtual town hall page. And then we added information about council members, and I pulled up Councilmember Goff's as an example. It shows your ward, it shows her. You can see there's a link to her bio of questions that we had in the connection, as well as what she serves on and the when in Ward 4 video. So those are the recaps of what happened in 2020. So recap of new and refreshed efforts. We added an e-newsletter, and we do have a very specific goal on the e-newsletter. It's number one for people who are more digital. If they're not going to read the connection, they can always opt in for the e-newsletter. But really, it's to reach people outside of Northglenn but are interested in what's going on in Northglenn. So we primarily marketed this through our social media channels. Right now, we have about 520, 530 subscribers to our e-newsletter, and I like to call it Connection Light. So we take the information for the connection, condense what's the most popular and send that out. There's always a city council feature in our e-newsletter. We started a new resident welcome. We just sent out our second batch of those. We pull about 150 addresses from new water customers every quarter. I'm going to do one more before Antonio leaves, and then I'm going to have to update my new resident welcome packet. So we put that in place. Year in review, we actually did our second. We did one for 2019, also did one for 2020. I printed up a beautiful box of our 2019 ones that then sat in my office because of COVID. So this year I didn't print a box. We only had it digitally and of course mailed it out in the connection. Mayor Ward outreach, we've done that despite COVID. The virtual town hall, I already mentioned, telephone town hall, I do want to talk about briefly. We did use this primarily for COVID communications, and it was interesting. You could really see people were very engaged at the beginning. It kind of tapered off. State of the city, when I first arrived, the mayor did a state of the city presentation to the Rotary, I believe, and we talked about expanding that. With COVID, that kind of got set to the side, but we can consider that again for next year. Good Neighbor Awards are going great. We actually have 30, I think we did, I want to say 37 of them. 37 Good Neighbor Awards. People have been recognized by those already. And engagement at events, even despite COVID, we've actually had quite a bit of that. People came to Noel Northglenn to kick things off. And then when COVID kicked in, we're like, wow, what are people going to go to? But the cool car cruise, the grab and goes, we've had quite a few counselors participate in those. And I feel like the residents are very responsive to that and like to see you out and about. All right, so those are new and refreshed. So let's jump into, oh, look, I have some pictures of you being out and about. There's Becky at the National Night Out. Your retreat went great. We did a video for it. The bike giveaway, we have Joyce there and all our council members out in the community. So thought I'd throw a few pictures, right?
Thanks for catching the picture with the cane. I just love you, Diane. Just love you.
Very real, okay? You're out and about. It looked like a walking stick to me. That's all I have to say.
Okay, it's very pretty.
That's right. Okay, so new for 2021. So first I want to mention that not everything on this list is new. The only reason it's new for 2021 on this particular handout is because I didn't have it on the 2021. So like I said, anything that's different from 2020, I put on this one. So the forum video and candidate space at events has been done in the past. But I am trying to standardize things for the election this year. I'm not sure that's been in place in the past. And for public information, we really try and this is how we do things, so everybody gets treated the same. We know what the rules are. My entire staff knows what the rules are. We talk about it at leadership, what's appropriate. What are we going to do? So this year for the local election, the first thing we're going to do that I don't think has been done here, but is pretty standard to other municipalities is a insert in the connection that gives information about all of the candidates. So we'll have a uniform number of uniform questions for all of them. They'll fill it out online or paper if they need to. We'll have a limited amount of space that people can fill out answers to some standard questions. I'll work with Joanna on this. And I did talk about all three of these items with the city clerk and our city attorney, of course. So that will be new. And I have some basic reasons for this. The first is, as a smaller city, it's not like you get a ton of media coverage. And our local newspaper, who are great, but they don't have the reach that we do with our connection. So we mail something to every single address We are the primary information about the city and our city, not only for our city, but almost for all the other things that we cover in the connection. So since we're the primary provider of information, I feel like we have a responsibility to give our voters an opportunity to be, educated voters. So we'll have a connection candidate insert in October. That means it'll drop at the beginning of October, a good 2 weeks before mail ballots hit. So that's the first thing. The other thing, like I said, that isn't really new, but we're doing it a little bit differently is the candidate forum video. We began on this pretty late last year. The standard rules for this is if an outside group would like to host an inclusive candidate forum, we'll provide video of that and then not only promote the event, but also show the video on our platforms to help educate voters once again. And the city clerk will also put it on her page. So anybody who is an official candidate would be invited, be able to participate, and then we'd let people know about that event and also show the video after it is over. I believe that we already have a partner. I believe the Northglenn Thornton Rotary is willing to be a nonpartisan host of a candidate forum for Northglenn. So I'll be working with them on that. And if anybody else decides they want to do a forum, we might not videotape it, but we would definitely still publicize that it was happening, put it on the candidate page, that type of thing. And last but not least, candidate space at events. So most of you know that I now oversee engagement as well as communications. And I asked the question of, hey, can candidates have a table at events? How does that work? And it kind of felt like it had been not quite standardized. So we created a standard, and the standard is you can come to 4th of July, you can come to Safe Street Halloween, you can come to Pirate Fest. Those are the 3 events where candidates can have tables. There is a fee, it's $50. We do not provide anything but a space for that $50. So I do want to reiterate that all of our events are public and anybody can come to our events. And if you're a candidate and you walk around and you have your name tag, that is great. But if you want to have an actual table, a sign, some space where people walk by your booth, it will be a $50 fee, and you just sign up through Stephen and Ashley. So I'm trying to think of their title right now, and I'm like, you know who Stephen and Ashley are. You sign up through our events department for those 3 things. So those are 3 things that we're going to do since it's an election year to hopefully offer our candidates a fair and equal opportunity things on our platforms, as well as offer our voters information on local candidates. I'm going to jump to the next slide, but before I do it, this is different. So does anybody have any questions about that part? Nope, we're good?
I don't see any hands, nope.
Okay. I do have some suggestions and points of interest that I wanted to mention. I do need my notes for this one because I don't remember it all off the top of my head. So telephone town halls, we had several last year. They are expensive, just between $3,000 and $4,000, depending on how many people you call out to. There is a limitation on telephone town halls in that we were able to call to cell phone numbers because it was an emergency. Otherwise, we can only call to landlines. I was also recently notified of a loophole in this. If you're on the state level, you can call to cell phone numbers. So although local officials cannot, state can. So if we ever want to call landlines and mobile phones in Northglenn and it's not an emergency, we could partner with some of our state elected officials and be able to call the cell phone numbers. I think we might know a couple. Do you think? So we could always team up with them if we want to do that and call out to the cell phone numbers. And the biggest difference between our ward meetings or this meeting or the mayor's meetings is we host a virtual meeting and people can call in and they can watch us and they can ask questions. The biggest thing you pay for telephone town halls is the list of people to call. They provide the landlines and cell phone numbers, like I said, if we're allowed to call those, and a platform that screens all of the calls. So it is expensive, but you do get a pretty big service for that, which is it's direct outreach. You're sitting at home, somebody calls you, says, hey, we're having this town hall. Do you want to hear? So needless to say, we have a much bigger participation because they're personally invited. All right, so that's telephone town halls. Online engagement, we already talked about the telephone town or the virtual town hall page. We are paying for that engagement, so I really want to encourage you that when we have issues where we want to hear from our community, social media is great. People can talk and they can call you, of course, but what we kind of miss from that engagement is some accountability. This is read exactly what's going on and give us feedback about what's going on. A lot of times people have some special interests, or they don't understand all the information, or they haven't done their homework and just want to, tell you a bunch of stuff. So the thing that's good about our online engagement is that we can give people some education about whatever the issue is, and they can give us relatively informed input on those issues. Think about the police department 360 assessment. We didn't get a ton of people that weighed in, but the people that weighed in really, they looked at it, they understood it, they had some definite perspectives that were helpful. So their input was more constructive to what we were doing, and I think it's easier to integrate into what we're doing as a city, and I'm sure helpful for you as someone who's making these policy decisions. So I do want to continue to encourage you. There are some other online engagement tools that we can consider. However, they don't necessarily, there's a lot of investment in time, and I haven't really seen the return on investment at a level that I would recommend it for us at this point. But if we feel we want to go that direction, I can always look at it. But in the meantime, we do have this tool. We haven't utilized it as much as I would like. We will soon with the CCPP and the DICE boards are both looking at it, as well as our comprehensive plan. But just want to continue to encourage City Council that when you feel like we have a hot issue, that we really want some engagement with our public, it's great to have it, because it spells things out. It's a little bit more structured, and we promote it on social media and we promote it on all of our normal platforms, but it guides them to a place where they, can give us an open answer, but not necessarily this back and forth bicker between people that sometimes happens on social media. The other thing is our ward tour videos. I had originally thought, what I'm going to do is I'm going to have the ward featured every month in the connection, which there's two issues. That the first is space. We don't have space to do that every month. We have a lot of things in there. And the second thing is topics, because we already talk about everything in the connection. So it's hard to come up with topics that are specific to the ward, different than everything else that we cover in there. So instead, we came up with these ward tour videos, and it was really well received on social media. It's nice to have an opportunity to promote businesses, because as a city, we have to be fair, right? We can't really promote things, but you as elected officials really do have license to say, hey, I love going to this park, or, we always have, this is my favorite place to have brunch. So it's nice to do a few shout outs to your ward. It's really popular on social media. So if you haven't done that yet, I would really recommend you reach out to me if you're interested, because I think they're a great tool, a nice thing to liven up your webpage. And we did show it more than once and had great response every time that we put it up on social media for Ward 3. Council member connection articles, although we aren't doing it monthly, I would like to do it again after the election. It would be the same questions that you answered for any new council members, and then I'll do a different set of questions for existing council members, so that we'll again have that side by side. Hey, meet your city council members, or hey, here's new information about your council members. I just think it's good to get your face in front of the entire city so people are familiar with you. Social media response. We do have a social media policy, and since it's an election year and since we've had some hot topics, I just wanted to do a quick reminder that we have some people that go and say cruddy things. Sometimes, there's just, everybody has trolls. That's just how it is. And we have free speech. People can say whatever they want. They can insult staff and my staff and elected officials, but they can't threaten other people. That's not okay. And they also can't put completely unrelated things on posts about something. So let me give you an example. When we have a post that's like, hey, congratulations to somebody, and then somebody writes something, ridiculous or inappropriate about police officers, we hide those. And it's part of our social media policy. So just so you know, some people they'll be like, they blocked me. First of all, we don't block anybody. And if they're responding to what the post is about, it stands. But if it is irrelevant to what the post is, there are times where we had those comments, and that's just part of our social media policy. The other thing with social media is your show on YouTube, and it doesn't happen very often, but sometimes people want to engage on YouTube while you're having your meeting. And just to let you know, once again, that's why we have an online engagement tool, or they come and talk to you at meetings, because there's a little bit more opportunity for you to understand where people are coming from. And it's not just I don't want to say what they say isn't appropriate, because a lot of times it is, but they get to have a one-sided conversation, right? And it isn't appropriate for staff to have a back and forth with them. They should be talking to their elected officials, which is you. So as staff, I've directed my team, and I do the same, which is we answer factual questions. We get back to people if they ask for a response. But if they're trying to have a conversation about an issue, they really should be discussing that with you, or coming to a council meeting, or using those platforms. Trying to have a philosophical debate about something the city is doing. I'm like, we tell people what we do and why. If they want to debate the why, that's where it comes to policy. So just to let you know, that's our social media response. And I know most of you already know that, but once again, we're going to have an election this year, so just wanted to do a reminder. So hybrid meetings, I tortured myself this year. You should have seen me. I was just like, why aren't people coming to these meetings? It's more accessible than ever. I was really, not very happy. So I reached out there's a PIO list for CML. Hey, is anybody else having this issue? Of course, the first two people that responded are like, no, we have tons more people. It's great. I'm like, I'm a total failure. Oh my Lord. But then, sorry, my dog's chasing her tail. It's always a good time. But, the first two were the only two that were like, it's greater, it's better than ever. Then I got a whole bunch of people that are like, oh, it's atrocious. We don't know what to do. Here's all the things that we're trying. So that made me feel better, because everybody was trying the same things I was trying, which is, you're doing direct mailers, you're trying to put it in the connection, you're doing repeated invites, you're trying to, put out things of why this is interesting and why we want input. So everybody kind of had the same kind of fatigue, where they weren't going to as many online meetings. But you really could see, this is a good way for us to measure direct mail, because I can tell you when we did a direct postcard on behalf of council member ward meetings, we got a higher response than we did with the poor mayor's meeting, because we didn't do a direct mailer. And anytime you have single subject kind of pieces, I notice an uptick. So hybrid meetings will be an option for council. And that's not really my venue, to be honest with you. That's the city manager and the city clerk and the city attorney. But when it comes to ward meetings, I did want to throw out there that although our attendance wasn't as good as they are in person, which is kind of good news, isn't it? You want to know people are happy to see you. They want to come see you. That's great. But I did want to mention that it is an accessibility thing. So you may want to consider, maybe some of your meetings are in person, or maybe some of them are held in a space where you could have a hybrid when it comes to ward meeting. I did want to encourage you, because I did hear some feedback from people, as I'm sure you did as well, that really appreciated that, because of their work schedule, because of transportation, for whatever reasons, that the opportunity to engage was there, even if not that many people did, that they did appreciate the opportunity. So did want to mention that about hybrid meetings. So is that my last slide, or do I have one more?
Can I ask a question before you
Please.
go on?
Yes.
So when you're talking about hybrid meetings, for example, Ward 3 has one coming up toward the end of May.
Right.
Is it possible to set that up for then, or do we need more time ahead of time? I mean, we're going to try to do it outside, so I don't know how that would work with what you're...
I think that kind of situation is a little bit difficult. There are two places in the city that we probably could do hybrid relatively effectively, which are city council chambers and the Justice Center. They're just set up technology-wise to be able to do hybrid. When it comes to outside, we'd have to look at something like doing a Facebook Live. Can we do that? Yes, we can. And I don't think that's a bad thing, but we should probably practice is the first thing. And the other is, how valuable would that be on Facebook as opposed to where people could actually call in and talk back to us? Facebook, they can do that if you have somebody managing the Facebook, but it isn't you as council members running the meeting. Whereas if we run a hybrid out of those two venues and it's your meeting, you can recognize the speakers just like you do in your virtual ward meetings. If it's a Facebook Live, it's really people are watching and then putting stuff in comments, so staff would have to facilitate for you. Can it be done? Yes. How effective would it be? I don't know. We would have to try it. But my recommendation is really probably trying to mix, like have one that's outside, just like we do. Sometimes it's Saturdays, sometimes it's weekdays. Try to have a mix.
Okay. All right. Well, I don't think we're going to change anything from our plan so far, but we'll keep that in mind for the future. I hadn't thought about the accessibility issue, so thank you.
No, so it is interesting. And like I said, since the participation isn't as high, you don't want to give up your in-person that people love. But on the flip side, maybe we could still offer that opportunity on occasion when it comes to ward meetings, because I do think people appreciate it. All right, so just looking ahead, I know all of you probably woke up some nights thinking, whatever happened to that 18-month communications plan that Heather Grady put together, right? I'm sure you all were. Yeah, just kidding. All right. I just wanted to let you know Heather Grady did some great work. And when I walked in the door, I worked that plan and worked it until it ended. So at 18 months, we had to redo the plan. I did call it a 3-year communications and engagement plan. And I do want to say, I know my department is officially known as communications, but since I have engagement under me as well, I did write the plan for our entire team. So we have a 3 years communications and engagement plan that picked up where the 18-month plan picked up where it left off. A lot of the stuff that she had done, all that work still applies. You know, she did a very thorough audit. So I kind of gave in one section a brief report of, hey, what happened to all the stuff that she suggested that we do, and most of it has been addressed. And then did the next 3 years in conjunction with what we have in the strategic plan of things that we're looking at and things we're going to roll out. So just put that in there for your information. You don't have to, well, maybe if you want, you know, something to help you go to sleep at night, you could just roll that out and read those 50 pages. It'll be great. But to let you know that I'm really big on, this is a strategic plan. This is our communications and engagement plan that supports the strategic plan. And here's the things that we're taking off to support the efforts of our city and where we're going as a city. This guides our work through 2023. We've been working this plan since the end of last year. A couple of things that I plan to investigate this year are text alerts. My biggest challenge with this is, and I'm sure Meredith can attest, we had a system in the schools where people would get an email, they would get a text message, whether you're a staff member, whether you're a specific school, whether you're students, whether you're parents, we could communicate with all of them. But the difference is we had all of that information captive. All right. So it was pretty easy to be like, we're going to send this to all of these people. Not a perfect system, but overall, you know, relatively effective. So we could do text alerts. There's a number of services. But how do we get people to sign up for the text alerts? I can't just appropriate the people's phone numbers, however much I might want to. I can't do that. So, you know, our e-newsletter is a good example of, you know, we have 526 people signed up for the e-newsletter. And that's not bad. I'm very happy with it. But it's not, you know, to justify the cost of a text notification thing. Is that enough people? I don't know. So I have a conference that I'm going to this year. So I'll ask some other municipalities what they're using, how they got people to sign up, what they felt was a good investment, what results are, to kind of take a look at that. There's another big trend of city apps where you download an app, and we already have Access Northglenn, but think of that on steroids, where you could pay your water bill, you can book a recreation program, you can figure out what day I didn't pick up your trash cans, all of those things in one app. And that's a big trend as well, but that is a very heavy lift because we have a bunch of different systems. So I don't know how viable it is, but I definitely want to look into it. So on the communication side, those are the two things that I think are probably the most interesting. And then I wanted to do a brief report on, well, how much have things changed? So for the connection and direct mail, the only really support we have is anecdotal until we do our next resident survey, and that'll give us an idea of what kind of impact those have made. I can tell you anecdotally, I know if we do a single subject mailer or it's in the connection, if something happens and it wasn't mentioned in those ways, we just don't have the same turnout. So I know those two methods work very well. Luckily on social media, we can just do a straight up measurement. So on Facebook, in the last 18 months, we've had a 12.6% increase in impressions, 2.1% increase in engagements, 77% increase in post clicks. So that means people use our links to go to other stuff. So that's really good. 24.6% increase in fans. So we have 5,357 people who like our page and 6,040 who follow our Facebook page. And the number of posts in the last 18 months has increased by 93%. For Twitter, a little disappointed in Twitter, so I'm just going to say that right up front. We're having a hard time getting new people to follow us. However, despite not getting as many new people as I would like, we do have 51.4 increase in impressions, 164% increase in engagement. So the people that are there are engaging with us a lot more. 149% increase in clicks on links, and then 13.5% increase in our followers. So we have 3,900 followers on Twitter, and we had a 93% increase in the number of things that we put on Twitter. And Instagram's our big hero because it was our smallest, so it's a lot easier to make that look great. Not that the others don't look great. Kyla and Dillery is really doing a great job. But on Instagram, we had a 97% increase in impressions, 87.5% increase in engagement, 89% increase in followers. So we now have 1,432 on Instagram. And then we had an 80% increase in posts on Instagram. For our website, which is a little static, but it kind of should be static because we have 40,000 residents and we're keep serving the same people. So that means we've had good engagement on our website and want to continue. But just to give you an example, in March of 2020, we had about 19,000 users in that month and about 26,800 sessions for those 19,600 people. And in March of 2021, we had 23,784 users. And they conducted roughly 31,113 sessions. So website is up slightly. Last month just happened to be unusual. We'll just go with that word because I haven't seen as much of a change. But I will say we have people, the trend is showing that they're finding what they're looking for a lot more quickly since we shortened up the main page. And also made sure that we're tagging things well. So when you do a search in the search bar, it comes up in a better way. So that's just a little bit of analysis. And that's what I'm using in our 3-year plan to kind of keep tabs on, are we doing the right things? Are we reaching the people we need to reach? What do we need to do to make sure we're utilizing our tools to the best of our ability and people are getting information? So I was kind of long, I'm sorry, but what questions do you guys have? What input do you have that you would like to be done differently or things that you don't think are worth it or something new you'd like me to look into? Really would love to hear your feedback. And I have a pen ready to take notes.
All right, Councilmember Duran-Mulliga.
Actually, my comment was for the hybrid meetings conversation that happened a while back. And that was because I know that I think in Ward 4, didn't you guys do like a meeting and you guys were like putting it on Facebook, live streaming it on Facebook? I don't know. If you guys have any learnings, I think that could be good because I know that you guys tried that in the past. And so anything that could teach anybody else how to work that better would be helpful. And then as for the rest of your communications plan, honestly, I feel like you were really right on a lot of, the report out that you provided. I liked the telephone town halls. I feel like you get a different group of people and a different type of engagement. I think it's really important to have a driving topic though. So like if it was like a general, like call in and, we have some things we're going to talk about. Like, I think it's really hard. You really have to have a driving conversation to get people on. But I like that there's people who log in to the telephone town hall that I've never even heard from before. And I'm like, this is great. So you get a different group of people, which is really helpful. And then, other than that, I think I've noticed a huge difference, not only in the connection, but in other communications that the city's been doing since your arrival and since you've gotten your team together and really kind of hit it full steam. The connection looks fantastic. There's so much useful information in there. And I think it's also really highlighting kind of like the policy making process a little better than it has in the past. Which I think is important given that, we are a city government. So it's kind of something we should talk about. But I think overall, just congratulations to you and your team, especially over this past year. You guys were phenomenal. Keep up the good work. I don't have a lot of extra good ideas because I feel like you guys have like kind of capitalized on all the cool things. So I don't have much to add, but thank you. I just wanted to throw that out there.
Thank you so much, Julie. I appreciate that. And Ward 4 actually did jump in when they had their forum. They did it on Facebook Live, and they had a really good turnout. But it was a candidate forum, so it was a pretty big draw. But they did it, and I thought it turned out pretty well. They did stream it on Councilmember Wilford's page, though.
Councilmember Goff.
Thank you, Mayor. I will echo everything that Councilmember Mullica said. I've seen a lot of, more interest in postings and things on social media about the City of Northglenn events. And I really like the way the connection is looking these days. But the one question, or it's not really a question, but I was going to ask, and I know sometimes in the city manager's report or whatever that gets sent out, you have some of these statistics on social media, but you guys posted some photos from the tour of the new rec center, similar to what you showed us here. And I'm just curious, was that a really big hit with people or what?
It's a huge hit. Are the ones that, it's very interesting to me. The things that people love is looking at the new construction. They like that. But like Farmers Highline Canal cleanup, people love that. The tree guys, anytime the tree guys are going to plant a tree or smiling with their trees, people love trees, people love parks. So really people seeing things or seeing new things are really the most popular.
The reason I brought that up is that I took some photos when on the tour and posted it on my Facebook page, and that was got the most interest and was shared. And I mean, people were just so thrilled. And so I don't know I think you do a lot of photos of things that are going on, but that's the kind of thing that really gets people going. And I know at our ward meeting, we're going to want to talk about the new rec center, but we're outside and I don't know how pictures are going to work there. And so that was kind of I think that's makes me sad that we don't have a better way to always have pictures about everything. Like even on our city council and the presentations, I think so many people really appreciate photos and pictures and charts and diagrams and
well, and I think people really miss when we have the proclamations or we're giving people awards, and I would take pictures of those and put those on Facebook or on our other social media. Some of the most popular city council posts are exactly this because people like to see people, right? Mm-hmm. One recently was we showed the old city hall and people really liked that. It got a ton of shares. So kind of always interesting.
Okay, well, I just wanted to say thank you. And that was just my only comment was that was such a very popular topic. Even I noticed.
Mayor Pro Tem Wilfred.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Totally echoing comments made by Councilmember Duran Mullica and Councilmember Dr. Goff. It's been really fun to watch the communications team just like grow and really own the space that you all occupy. I feel like when I came on council, that was definitely an area that I was looking to see improved. And I feel like you and your team have just done a really awesome job. And I appreciate how creative you've been and how thorough you've been. I feel like every project is branded and like easy to follow and like super accessible to everyone, which, hasn't always been the case. There's a lot of municipal jargon that we use that the regular everyday person has no clue what we're talking about. And I feel like you all have done a great job in terms of translating things and making it relevant. So huge congratulations there. And real fast on the Facebook Live, I feel like hands down, the one thing that you need if you're going to do it in person is something to hold your phone with. I think they're called like tripods or something like that. Antonio and I, for the last couple of times that we had Facebook Live events, while a ward meeting was happening in person, we always forgot the tripod and we ended up taping bottles onto tables so that our phone would stay up and just kind of messy. So always have a tripod. And if there is a way to start connecting some of our virtual meetings into Facebook as a Facebook Live, it's just another venue to be able to catch folks that, may or may not have known about the meeting or may want to engage then and there. So if that's something that we could look at, I would love it. But I just, again, really congratulate you, Diana, and your team for all of the great work you've done and all of the ways that you've just been really flexible with us in COVID and kind of delivering on different ward communications. So that's all from me, Mayor. Thank you.
I completely agree. The transformation of the communications department has been remarkable. Just amazing work all the way around. I do have a question about future hybrid meetings. So when you talk about hybrid, you're talking about just the virtual version of a ward meeting, right? Because when I think hybrid, I'm trying to envision how to do both. So how to have an in-person gathering that also can be accessible. And I think, I don't know, maybe
you can go straight virtual, which we've been doing. We actually have the opportunity now in council chambers where some people can be present and in the audience to watch a meeting, but also call in via Ring Central, and you would see their faces in the screen, or they'd be able to ask questions via the same way they do on Ring Central as part of that meeting. So all of the people there would be able to see it. It's kind of like, it's doing a Ring Central where there's like 10 people in a conference room and other people are on the phone. Very similar. You guys will have that opportunity, I believe, for city council meeting. And I think you're talking about what you want to do with city council meetings early May. But those two spaces, like I said, I believe the Justice Center and city council chambers are set up where you could conduct a council or ward meeting the same way as you always do. But we could also give people virtual information where they could attend virtually if they chose. Like I said, go ahead.
In order to do that for like a mayor's mingle or a ward meeting, we would have to use one of those two spaces.
If you truly want to be there on Ring Central, they can comment, they can see people, you can see their faces. Yes. If you just wanted to do Facebook Live, where people are basically watching it and maybe typing in comments, we can do that from anywhere.
Okay. It's such an interesting thing to think about as we move into, I don't know, a new phase. I can't say it's back to normal because it'll just be a new version of life. I don't know that anything's normal anymore. But as we start to phase into that, I'm doing a lot of reflecting of, okay, not only personally, but with different hats on, right? Like, what do I want to keep that worked really well? What do I want to toss? And what do I just want to refine as we sort of step into this new phase? And so if there's things to completely get rid of, personally or professionally, that's one thing. But I'm finding there's a lot of, well, that kind of worked. I just want to tweak it. Or I really like that idea of having access for residents to meetings. So, just something to be thinking about. I think as we head into even a new generation of technology and communication, and you and your team are going to continue to be creative and innovative. I'm not worried. Just something to be thinking about, because it had the innovation and the creativity that our entire city has demonstrated over the last year has been so inspiring that I don't want us to lose sight of that. So thank you very much.
And one big thank you to you guys. I did definitely harp on, you need to let me know when you're going to do stuff. Give me some heads up and I'll promote it for you. I swear. Everybody's really followed that direction. Thank you so much for getting me my information when I asked for it. And I definitely do try to follow through and make sure that we promote it on all of our platforms. So I did want to say thank you so much. And I do want to reiterate with the hybrid meetings. I don't think you have to do every single board meeting that way. Like when the mayor had something at, the pizza place, you don't want to miss out on that opportunity to support a local business and talk with people. It'd be really hard to do that virtually just because of the background noise. However, if you were going to do it, at the Justice Center anyway, like Ward 3 has done a couple of times, we could easily make that hybrid. So don't want to like twist anybody's arm, but definitely an option, maybe an option you can offer at least once or twice a year at your meetings. I think people would appreciate it. All right. Is that all? All right. Thank you for the time. Thanks for being patient. I know I talked a lot, so thanks.
Thank you. Have a good night.
Right.
All right. Moving into the third discussion item, Ward 4 vacancy process. Just a little cranky with my colleague there who's deserting us. Just kidding. Super happy for you, I have to tell you. City Clerk Small is here to introduce the item. And I think City Attorney Hoffman will also help us out. Councilmember Goff, do you have a question to kick us off? No, I just saw your hand. You're just preparing. Do you want me to leave your hand up?
Yeah, please leave it up. I will have a question when there's time for questions.
Ready. I like it. Okay. Joanna, go ahead.
Okay. Good evening again, Mayor and Council. So staff has prepared some information, and I'm going to provide info about the proposed timeline for filling the upcoming Ward 4 vacancy. And then City Attorney Hoffman will provide information to Council about options for the election of the Ward 4 member this November. So a proposed timeline has been included in the packet on page 2 of the memo. And I just want to mention up front, the city charter requires that an appointment be made within 30 days of the vacancy, which will be July 11th. The appointed council member will serve until the November 2nd, 2021 regular city election. And want to note that since we know that the vacancy is forthcoming, that allows staff to go ahead and start the initial process to provide the required notice and to receive applications prior to the vacancy actually occurring. So that's why you'll notice that the proposed process kicks off in May. So I'll just run through the process and highlight a couple pieces on why certain dates were chosen. So the week of May 17th, we're suggesting that postcards notifying all of the residents in Ward 4 or every household will be mailed directly to those households. Postcards are not required, but we've found that they're a very effective form of notifying a specific ward about information. And then just to know, information will also be shared in other ways, like on the city's website, there will be a page dedicated to the vacancy, and then also on social media accounts as well. The official notice that's required will be published in the Northglenn Thornton Sentinel on May 20th, and that's also the day that we've identified for opening the application process. On June 7th, we have the application period ending. So applications would be due to the city clerk's office by 5 p.m. on that Monday, June 7th. That period of May 20th to June 7th provides more days than the minimum 14 days required. It's a total of 19 days if anyone's counting. So staff took into account the Memorial Day holiday. We also took into account the potential for City Hall to reopen at the beginning of June. However, I do want to note that if City Hall does not open back to the public in June, I'm confident that this application process still works. Residents will be able to submit applications in one of 3 ways. We'll have an online electronic form that they can fill out the application using. They can also send their application through the mail, or information will be posted on how to contact the city clerk's office so that residents can schedule a time to pick up or drop off an application in paper if that's the way that they need to apply. So then that dreadful day, Friday, June 11th, is when the vacancy is actually created. Then you'll notice June 21st is a regularly scheduled study session meeting date. That's when we've proposed that the council interviews applicants. Just a note, interviews with the entire council must be conducted at a public meeting. Wanted to just give some information for reference. Back in 2019, when we had a Ward 4 vacancy, we received 16 applications, and the interviews for those 16 applicants took 4.5 hours. We also had a Ward 1 vacancy in 2019. At that time, 7 individuals were interviewed, and those interviews took 3 hours. And I don't recall at which meeting, but I do remember hearing a desire expressed that we do not schedule such interviews to occur after a city council meeting on the same evening, because it creates for a very long evening for everybody. So I just wanted to throw that information out there as well. If there are no dates that all of council is available for interviews, we do have options. Back in 2019, a council member could not be present for the Ward 1 interviews. And so how we handled that situation after council identified that they wanted that member's input was that we sent a list of the interviews time-stamped using the meeting video. that member was able to watch the recording of the meeting, go ahead and submit their rating sheets and scores to the city clerk, and then we added those with the rest of council scores to use that as a guide point. Regarding the interviews also, it is very, very helpful to identify an interview date up front so that we can advertise that on the postcards, and that helps the applicants just plan ahead so that we don't have a lot of scheduling snafus to deal with. So then on June 28th, that is a regularly scheduled city council meeting. That's the date we've identified that council could appoint an individual to fill that Ward 4 vacancy. And if additional time is needed, council does have the ability to call special meetings. And then that July 11th date is the deadline to appoint the Ward 4 council member per charter. Just a note, that is a Sunday. So we'll want to do that on that Sunday or prior to that date. So there's some flexibility built into this schedule. The proposed timeline spreads out the process, but it can definitely be more compact if needed. Like I mentioned, it uses already scheduled study session and regular meeting dates. But we do have the ability to schedule other study session-like meetings for those interviews, and then also to call a special meeting if the June 28th regular meeting does not work for council. Staff is also asking for feedback on the application form. It's attached, it's included as attachment 1 to the staff memo. It is the same application that was used in 2019. There's one question that staff would like clarification on tonight if possible. And then if council has feedback regarding questions that you want changed, I would love to take that as well. So it's page 2 of the actual application, but page 4 of the file in the packet. There's a questionnaire section near the bottom of the page. And one of the questions asks, did you vote in the 2019 election? And so this was used in 2019. And at that time, I believe council was interested if the applicants voted in the city's November election, which made perfect sense. But in reviewing the application, there was a question from staff regarding whether or not that was still the intent, if council was interested in the applicants' participation in local elections, or if council wants to gauge their participation in the 2020 election. And let's see. That was a pretty quick review of the schedule. I don't know if you...
Joanna, I know we have a couple questions about the schedule. That was what Councilmember Goff wanted. So go ahead.
Yep.
Thank you very much. Yeah, my concern, it's really a concern, is that I had made plans to be out of town on June 21st. So...
Sorry, that's very funny.
It's possible. I mean, I don't know, to require kind of bending over backwards and doing handstands to change that. But so I just wanted to put that out there. If I could be one of those people that does this remote thing that you described, or if there's an option for another day.
I think we can certainly talk about that. However, there's 9 of us that might have summer vacations. So we could be working through them all. I think, Joanna described a couple processes for working around that. I guess I thought your question was a little more about the process of the schedule, less about your personal schedule. So maybe we can get to that part at the end. And we can fine tune dates collectively in another way. I don't know. I misinterpreted. I apologize. I thought you had a more process related question.
Yeah, well, it was just about whether how hard, hard and fast those dates are, like written in stone, or how much flexibility we have. Then I guess that would be my question.
Yeah, I think she said it's spread out and we can compact it if we want to. Councilmember Brown.
I don't know if this is the right time, Mayor. My question was on the term. Will they be, will the person, when we move into the election in November, will they be informed at that point that it's only a 2-year term and it's not a normal 4-year term?
I think that's the discussion for later. But
okay.
yeah, the idea is there are two options for who gets the 4-year term and who gets the 2-year term. And as the memo indicates, council can have 2 separate seats, one for the 4-year term and one for the 2-year term. That would be consistent with state law. The other option, but it would take council adopting an ordinance and setting up a different process, would be for the to have essentially one election for both seats, and the top vote getter would get the 4-year term, and the person with the second most votes would get the 2-year term.
And the reason that we're not doing it, like when Meredith became mayor, and we chose Randall, who has been wonderful at his job, it was till the end of her normal term, right? If she had stayed a city council person. And is the reason that we can't do this now and just assign somebody for 2 years because there is an election this year?
Correct. The term is filled to the next regular municipal election.
I thought that's what I read.
And when Mayor Leidy's seat came open, the next regular election is 2021.
Okay. Thank you.
So I'm guessing there are probably lots of calendaring questions. And so what I heard Joanna say is that we can shift these dates. They're not hard and fast. I think they were very thoughtfully put together, backward planning with a calendar to make sure that we meet the July 11th date. But that said, we probably all do have obligations. So how would you like to go about that? I mean, I'm thinking like a doodle poll is what I do. Like send it all out and everyone puts it in. When am I not available? When am I on vacation? And I think, so Joanna, can you clarify something for me? If someone can't make it, but is okay not making it, does it have to be a full council decision? Like hypothetically, I'm not saying this is the case, but hypothetically, we pick a date and someone misses and they don't have the ability to make up the homework. And so they just say, it's okay. I'll just, I'll support whatever decision you guys decide. Like, is that a thing? Or does it have to be 8 unanimous, all together people putting in their input?
It does not have to be unanimous. So it could be as you described first. If all of council can't attend the interviews, or if they don't have the ability to watch the interviews and provide their input after the interviews are conducted, or if time simply doesn't allow for that, it does not have to be a unanimous decision by all of council. And so how that's worked in the past is a couple different ways. I think with the most recent vacancy, the interviews were held that same evening. Council had a discussion with the 8 or 7 members that were present. And then council decided they did want to include the absent members' input, but it didn't change the discussion that council had. So there's kind of the deliberation, there's the interview process, the deliberation among council, and then the actual appointment is going to have to be done at a regular or a special council meeting where council does vote, and that does need to be approved by the majority of council members.
Right. So I appreciated that you put it, I was just going to pull up the calendar that you had shared because I appreciated that you were working with actual meetings that we have. I think it's very challenging to add additional meetings. So in case this is helpful for discussion purposes, I don't know if the color coding matters, Joanna, or if it's just helpful to see the calendar, but I do see Mayor Pro Tem Wilford has her hand up.
I was just going to flag that I'm also not planning on joining the June 21st meeting. And so we would effectively have Catherine out, me out, and then obviously Antonio gone as well. So just a flag.
So that's a question. Does Antonio get to be a part of the process? Does he get to vote?
No, I was just highlighting the vacancy.
Oh, okay.
Like be operating with, 6 members as opposed to 8 or 9 that night.
So as far as...
But Mayor, the answer to your question is that Antonio does not vote.
Okay, that's what I thought. I'm sorry, I misunderstood. Joanna, can you talk to me about these June? So maybe you do need to explain the colors just to me. So June 14th versus the 7th. 14th is a study session, is that correct?
So the 14th is a regular city council meeting.
Oh, I have it backwards.
Yeah, and so we didn't utilize any regular council meeting dates for the interviews. It's possible we could do that, but then that business meeting would need to be held on a different date by a special meeting. And the color, so there's a legend at near the bottom of the calendar, or I'm happy to describe my color coding as well. We identified the Ward 4 meeting date just because that's important, and I think it's an important opportunity to communicate some of this information.
Yeah.
Although the schedule accounts for some flexibility, we really do want to nail down some of the dates so that we have good information that we can include on the postcard, in the notice, and then on all of the information that's available to the public so that they also have an idea of what the anticipated schedule is.
So if the 21st is not a viable option, crunching it to the 7th, is that possible? And then just moving all the timelines up 2 weeks?
I don't know that I would move everything up 2 weeks. I think there's probably some flexibility with the application period. Does council prefer to utilize a Monday evening for the interviews, or is there a desire to look at maybe a different day the week of June 14th?
I would prefer to use a Monday myself. Mayor Pro Tem?
Could we just flip-flop and do the regular meeting on the 21st and maybe do the 14th for interviews? And then make the appointment still on the 28th?
I guess that's a question, Joanne. I don't know if you can answer that one, but the other one is, are we butting up against a communications deadline as far as getting the postcards out sooner?
If we can have a timeline, figured out tonight would be fantastic. Although I understand that might not be possible. When I talked to communication staff probably a week ago, they said that being ready to drop those postcards off to be mailed on May 17th would not be an issue with the current schedule. I'm not exactly sure how much lead time that they would need, depending on when the schedule is set. That makes sense.
So then the question becomes, can we switch the 14th and the 21st? I guess I have a bigger question. Are other council members going to miss? Or do we not know yet?
On the 21st, is that what we're talking
or
about?
any other Monday? Like, are there any other summer plans or Mondays off that people were planning on taking in the month of June? I mean, I know I have some. I'll just have to move them around. Especially if we end up, like hypothetically, if we do make the switch and we have a study session on the 14th with the interviews and the regular meetings on the 21st, but everyone takes it off, then there's no regular meeting, or we don't have enough to run it. Councilmember Goff.
I'd like to ask a question about that. Now, we talked about hybrid meetings and whatnot for the ward meetings. What is going to be, or maybe I should know this already, the electronic policy if we go back to in-person meetings, or are we still going to be doing, virtual meetings? Because it's much more possible for me on the 21st in a hotel room to, participate the way I am right now. But I don't know how, but it doesn't seem like that's going to work too well for interviews. I don't know. Actually, I don't really know. Are we doing these interviews in person or virtually?
I think virtually. Because we haven't made a decision about in-person things yet.
Well, if everything's all virtual, then then I would have to say at this point, it's not likely to be an issue for me. Unless the hotel internet dies or something. But I think any of those dates would work for me.
And I think one of the reasons we created we were ahead of COVID for our meetings was that you could use it if you were not going to be in town. You could do it through Ring Central, or you'd be able to attend the meeting.
I think so too.
Yeah, I think that's why I could only imagine it was probably for me. But
I think actually that was part of it, Becky, because we did have this discussion way before COVID.
Yeah. And I thought that was part of the deal, if we are, because there are people that go on business trips, there are people that do all kinds of things. And I thought that's why we had the ability to have virtual meetings.
Well, so no one else is going to be gone in June? I haven't really heard of anybody else mentioning missing meetings in June.
No, I'll be able to attend all those meetings. My plans are around the meetings. Just okay. Not purposely, it's just going to happen that way.
Yeah. Okay. So Joanna, did we ever get an answer on swapping the 14th and 21st?
So that sounds like a great plan to me, but I would ask for input from City Manager Geyer and City Attorney Hoffman. There may be items that I'm not anticipating or something that I'm not thinking about right now. So I wouldn't want to say, yes, that sounds great without getting their input as well.
From my perspective, it's council prerogative. There's no legal issue with switching the meetings.
And I would echo what Corey shared. You will have to wait 1 week longer to hear Jason's financial report. That's really the only item on June 14th right now. So for a little bit of levity, we'll be fine. We'll make it work.
So I think that's a pretty good proposed solution.
Yeah, I think it works well. If it works for everybody's schedule, the 14th seems like a good time. Let's just push that date out, and then, we'll get our work done out of the way.
So to recap, the regular meetings in June are now the 21st and 28th. Can we do 2 back-to-back study sessions?
You can, yep.
Okay.
So yeah, there'd be a study session on the 7th, the interviews on the 14th, a special business meeting on the 21st, and then your regular council meeting on the 28th.
Got it. Okay. And on the 28th is when we would hopefully, and that actually gives us 2 weeks if we need it for that extension when you were talking about, appointing versus interviewing. Okay. What was the next layer you needed feedback on? Oh, the application. I don't recall the need or the purpose behind that additional question. Is there a council member that can speak to this? Did you vote in the 2019 election? Councilmember Goff?
Thank you, Mayor. What I am remembering is that the point of that was to kind of gauge civic engagement with the city. So I do believe it was in regards to city election that year. So I'm not sure if it's pertinent to keep it on this time around, but if someone else has a different take on it, we can discuss it further.
Councilmember Witkovich?
Thank you, Mayor. I completely agree. I agree completely with Councilmember Goff. I'm not even sure that came up for discussion when we were deliberating about the applicant, so I am fine taking it off.
I am too. Does anyone really want to fight to keep it? No? Okay. Antonio does. He doesn't get a vote on that one. Did you have any other questions about the application, Joanna?
No, I think I've got what I need to proceed with the appointment process. And so thank you for your input. I'll stop talking and I'll turn it over to City Attorney Hoffman.
Joanna, can I just say one thing? On your list where you have serves until November 2nd, general election or whatever, I think we need to change that because they actually serve till December, the first Monday in December, right?
So, I mean, if we knew exactly when the election results would be certified and when the new council would be sworn in, we could identify that date. But oftentimes we don't know exactly what that date will be because it is dependent on the certification of election results. So the way we kind of identify a period of time is that we say that they serve until the November 2nd election, which essentially includes that certification period and then the swearing in time. So we could include more information to kind of explain that it's not like November 2nd, they can't just, run away and leave.
It's beneficial for them to know, somebody to know.
Sure. Thank you.
I mean, they could be running away on vacation for Christmas.
All right, Corey, what you got?
The last issue is really dealing with how to address the 2-year term for the November election. And so the way this works is that because the person the council appoints only serves until November, and because each ward has staggered terms, the way to keep the term staggered is to have one 2-year term and one 4-year term at the November 2nd election. And so the state statutes that apply to cities and towns contemplate that there are actually 2 different seats, and the candidates can elect with their nomination petitions to submit a nomination petition for either the 2-year term or the 4-year term, but not both. So the candidate would actually have to select. That's the process that the city used in the past when it had this issue come up 20 years ago. I think because that's, again, consistent with how the law works. Now, because the city's a home rule municipality, it could elect to have one election and then have the top vote getter get the 4-year term, and the second most votes would get the 2-year term. That is an option, but it would take the council actually adopting an ordinance to do so, because that's a process that would otherwise deviate from state law. So I present it to you for your consideration. If you do nothing, there would be the 2 separate seats. If you want to have the the top vote getter and then the second most vote getter in one election, if you will, then this council would need to consider an ordinance to set up that process.
Corey, can you speak to the ranked choice voting that is being discussed right now? Because is that possible that will go into effect before our election?
It is, but it doesn't affect the city because the city has a home rule charter provision that is different from ranked choice voting. So if the ranked choice voting goes into effect in Northglenn, it would still require a charter amendment.
Got it. Councilmember Brown?
I just want to say that I think doing the highest vote getter gets the 4-year term and the second highest gets the 2-year term. I think that's probably the simplest way to do it and not get into who's running for the 2-year term, who's running for the 4-year term. In my opinion, that actually could affect how you campaign. You know what I mean? It seems to me that if we just do the top vote getter gets the 4 years and the second highest gets the 2 years, it just seems like a cleaner process. And one that all the residents can have a say-so in, you know?
That's so interesting that you say that, because that was why I asked about ranked choice voting, because I feel like, Corey just said it's not the cleanest because we have to pass an ordinance to make it even available, but it also leads into ranked choice voting. So if that's something that we want to consider as a city, it sort of sets us up for making that change in the future. I thought the other option was easier. So maybe it's not, I don't know.
I think the having two separate seats is probably easier from a election management perspective, in terms of having the two seats. I can also tell you that I have heard kind of just in discussions with other municipal attorneys that when there are a couple of communities that have charters that have the highest vote getter gets the 4-year term, and that oftentimes the second highest vote getter is perhaps perceived as not necessarily the winner, even though they have the 2-year term, and that there's sort of a cultural issue, if you will, in terms of them not being perceived as winning the election. That's completely optics, if you will, but it is something that has certainly been an issue in other communities.
Councilmember Goff?
Oh, I'm kind of intrigued with this idea, and I actually agree with Councilmember Brown that, I know the upfront process is not cleaner, but I think for the voter, it might make it, a simpler process. This isn't ranked voting because, there's some differences between this and ranked voting. So I'm not sure that it could qualify as a precedent for that. But I just think that in terms of people, because this is an instance, and I don't know how often it has happened in the history in Northglenn, of both positions for the ward coming open. It just might make it easier for people to understand that they just vote, for their top choice, and then whoever receives the most of those votes gets to be the 4-year person. And I hear what Corey's saying. I hadn't considered that, but on the other hand, we're Northglenn and we can do things the way we want to do them. So I would consider it. I'm not opposed at all to it.
You would actually vote for 2, though.
That's what I was gonna say. Okay.
Okay. All right. Okay. I see what you're saying. Yeah. On the ballot, you still in 2 circles, and then you count who had the most, and then the person who had the second. Got it. Yes.
Correct.
Thank you.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. Mayor Pro Tem Wilford?
Yeah, I just wanted to throw my 2 cents that I like the idea of the top 2 vote getters getting the top 2 positions. It just seems a whole lot less confusing. I guess at least the way that I look at the ballot in the past. So yeah, just my 2 cents.
Councilmember Escobar?
Thank you, Mayor. I know I'm not going to be voting in this election, but who knows? In New Mexico, it was a dead vote, so maybe they do in Colorado too. I'm just curious, when you have the top vote getter, assuming that in one position there are 2 candidates, and the other position there are 4 candidates. There's only a finite number of votes. So it gives the advantage to the person to the position that only has 2 votes, because assuming 900 people vote, let's say it's 400 to 500. One gets 4 and the other one gets 5. That's pretty simple. When you have 4 positions, have no idea how those 900 votes are going to be distributed, and the numbers could really make a difference. In other words, if the top vote getter got 400, and then the next person got 300, and the next person got 100 and 100, then who is actually the top vote getter? If you had 2 positions. Whereas you have 2 separate, the way we have it, right, the way it is right now, when we had the last election and there were 6, I believe, running for my seat, maybe 5. There was me and 4 others, or me and 5 others. You didn't need a lot of votes, but yet it was a close election. Yet there was 5 people. The runner-up to my position was only, I think, 11 votes. So when you start, depending on the number of candidates filing for those positions, it can make a huge difference who is elected. My 2 cents.
Councilmember Witkovich.
Thank you, Mayor. I guess I've got a question now after Councilmember Esquivel spoke. So if we were to do the option 2, there would be, 2 questions. It would be the same candidates for each. Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
So there would just be Ward 4, vote for 2 candidates. Highest vote getter gets the 4-year term, second highest gets 2-year term. So there would just be one, essentially, ballot, if you will, for both seats.
Okay, so just, it wouldn't be separate. I guess that's why I'm a little confused. They'd all be together.
Correct.
Okay. I'm happy to go with the majority on this. I don't have any strong opinions, but when I'm thinking about option 1, there could be some Ward 4 residents who only want to make a 2-year commitment for whatever reason. Maybe they're intimidated by doing 4 years. Maybe they know they're going to be moving away in more than 2 years. So I was kind of leaning towards option 1 for that reason. It gives people an option. But I'm kind of happy to go with the majority on this because I don't have any strong opinion either way.
Councilmember Peterson.
Thanks, Mayor. I'm the same. I'm not real passionate about this, whatever, might be best for democracy and for, how that works for our voters. But I really think I do like option 1 in the sense that the office and the term is for 4 years, right? The term is for 4 years. Now, there happens to be a vacancy, right? That would force the staggered terms to be a term for 2 years. I think it's actually a more democratic process. And I think it's consistent with the rest of our elections throughout the city in so many ways. If we have one election, right, that it's a top 2 vote getter, and there's 2 other wards, obviously, that are up for re-election or have elections coming up in November, I think that could be real tricky, not clear for the voters. So for that reason, I favor option 1.
Corey, can I have a question? Ask a question. So you talked to other municipalities about the possible cultural piece. Has there been confusion? Because the other piece is, what if voters only vote for one? Because that's what they're used to doing, is pick one, pick one, pick one.
Those municipalities have it in their charter. So there hasn't been confusion because that's been the norm.
Okay. I just wonder if we would miss any votes because people get in the habit. If you have Ward 1, Ward 2, Ward 3, Ward 4, and they pick one for each, if we're going to lose votes, and by separating it 4-year, 2-year, they would know, oh, I have to vote twice. That's just a wondering I have. So no, we have
and I think that's why I think from the management perspective, the election management perspective as well, it's the normal ballot. The ballot looks like it always does. There's just 2 Ward 4 seats. And so I know, and certainly the city clerk can chime in, but when she and I were communicating about this, I mean, from a sort of doing it the way Northglenn has always done it in terms of ballot familiarity, having the 2-year term and the 4-year term is more consistent with that.
So we have some repeated hands in the air, but I want to make sure that every council member has a chance to weigh in before we go to a second round of comments. Joyce, what are you thinking?
I'm not sure what I want to do. I just don't know if I'm comfortable yet to make a decision. I guess I would go with, I'm still leaning towards option 1. So, and the reasoning, and I've been thinking about this, is what happens to those folks that typically only vote for one? When you have your elections and you have multiple folks, and they don't even look at the 2-year, 4-year, or whatever. And so they're just going to vote for one person, whatever it might be, not looking at the 2-year term or the 4-year term. I think folks are used to the way we do it, and I don't know if that's right or wrong. But I'm at this point, I think I'm still leaning towards option 1.
Julie, have you weighed in?
Not yet, because I am really torn, I think, on these 2 options. And I mean, I think, there's really good arguments for both. So I think that's why we just doesn't really even matter. I mean, we're going to fill the vacancy with an election, so that works. I mean, I think one of the things about having a question saying pick 2 for your Ward 4 member, I'm not worried about people not following directions. I mean, it's really, when it comes to ballot filling out, we're really used to having to read closely what the question says anyway, because they're super complicated, especially some of those ballot initiatives that were coming through at the state. And I mean, other cities have successfully done it. I agree. I don't know if there's going to be cultural issues. I mean, we've appointed people to this board and it's worked. I mean, I don't really see kind of the cultural side of it, with this group anyway, being an issue. So, I mean, if I'm leaning anyway, it would be for the 1 question, pick 2. But I mean, there's really good arguments for both. So I
don't want to bring up the past or poke anything, but we have had cultural issues with that in the past, and that is something I'm worried about. So, and it has come up in that. So it does recently. So it makes me a little worried.
Well, it's a good thing that it's an election, right? The people are speaking, not us. We're just appointing until the person gets elected. So,
yeah. Councilmember Brown.
What would happen, I'm just going to play devil's advocate, if nobody wants a 2-year term? And we don't get candidates who are campaigning for a 2-year term.
Then there would be a vacancy that council would appoint.
Right. I mean, that's one of many concerns that I have. But, in the past, or if you look at Ward 1, we haven't had a lot, even Ward 2 until this last election. Did we have a lot of people running, you know? Yeah, especially in Ward 1 and in Ward 2, it got until the last election, and then there were 3 of us running. So my concern would be that we would have a hard time recruiting somebody for the 2 years to run separately. Unless they were to come in and go, look, nobody's running for the 2 year. I'm gonna run for that one. I'm just not sure that we would get a good representation on the 2 year if we split it out. But I'm willing to go any way that you guys want to go.
A couple of repeated hands. Councilmember Goff.
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, this is kind of a tricky one. I mean, I would have to say there are good arguments both ways. I don't think there's much of an issue with people filling in 2 circles on the ballot as opposed to 1, because we've all seen ballots where it says, you know, vote for 2 or vote for 3 or whatever. And some of these other, you know, boards or for not judges, but, you know, there's different positions where you do have to vote for more than 1. And then kind of piggybacking on Councilmember Brown's comment. I mean, my concern is that came up as I was listening to Councilmember Esquivel talk was that what happens if we have, you know, a different number of people running for the 4 year than the 2 year? It's, you know, that I think, which is maybe, you know, maybe that won't happen, but I think if you know, it's a different kind of amount of effort you have to put in and work and everything else, that if you have more opponents running against you. So if you just put it all into one pool, then it's just, you know, everybody's kind of working for the same, you know, at the same level for the same goal. I think it'll show a commitment to the city that you're willing to take the 4 year, or, you know, that you'd be willing to take the 2 year if you really wanted the 4 year, because, you know, it's to serve the city. And if you do a good job, it's, you know, you could get reelected. So I'm leaning towards the second option, but that's mostly because I would be really interested in seeing how it worked. And that there might be some real benefits that we decide in the long run. But, you know, like most people are saying here, I also don't have a really strong feeling. And I think, I'm not sure how we're going to decide if we're all not sure that we have a strong sense one way or the other. Flip a coin or something.
Well, what's the timeline for deciding? I know Joanna needs the information by election season. Yes.
Yeah, I mean, I think if council wants to consider this formally and it takes an ordinance, I would suggest considering the ordinance in the next couple meetings so that you have it in place once the appointment is made, well in advance of petitions being circulated. Because if the ordinance fails, so, you know, if we prepare the ordinance for essentially the top 2 vote getters and it fails, there will be 2 separate nomination petitions. So we absolutely need to know sooner rather than later once petitions are able to be circulated.
But maybe not tonight.
Not tonight, certainly.
Okay. Corey, can I ask a clarifying question? So say we run the process no matter how we run it. The candidate that wins the 2 year seat, are they eligible for 2 4 year seats?
They are. So under the term limits, it's 2 4 year terms or 3 2 year terms under the Colorado Constitution. And there's been over the years a number of opinions. And so you can have 1 2 year term and 2 4 year terms.
Interesting facts. Antonio, did I leave your little hand up or did you have something else to add? Okay, sorry, it's still up. Well, I'm sort of like Julie in the sense that I see pros and cons to both sides. If I was going with a gut check, the second one makes me hyperventilate a little bit. I'm noticing like a physical reaction of tension and short breathing. And maybe that's change. Maybe it's the culture piece I'm really concerned about. I would hate for the second place person to not feel like a full member of our council and And I do worry, and maybe it's because I send surveys to grown adults all the time and they don't read the directions. So it is very possible that they will not read the directions. And we can hope that they read the directions, but they don't always. So I would hate for our voter turnout to be really low. I don't know. I'm very undecided, and I would like more time to think about it, but I heard a lot of other undecided pieces.
You may have flipped me, Meredith, so I would like some time to think about it too.
Yeah.
So Heather, can we bring this back soon, but wrap it up since we're not ready right now?
We can. Can I gauge a reaction from council if next Monday's too soon, or if you'd rather have us bring it back on? Well, we could bring it back next Monday or May 10th. But I would say, keeping with the timeline, what's your reaction? Is next Monday too soon?
A couple weeks would be nice.
Okay, so May 10th.
And what I could do is put a draft ordinance together. It doesn't have to be considered, but just so council could see what the draft ordinance would look like, still for discussion on May 10th, not for consideration on first reading, but simply so that you have it in front of you to talk about.
Okay. Joanna?
Can I just chime in with one bit of information? Since we have adjusted the regular meeting schedule in June, I just want to point out that we lose the ability to introduce an ordinance on first reading on June 14th. So if council decides to take action on an ordinance, I would hope that that could occur in May, is what I'm trying to say, so that we can get the election information squared away sooner rather than later. Thank you.
So just for clarification, what happens if it doesn't? Like what is the deadline for, just in case something happens? Like what is the deadline for election season? When does that officially kick off?
Any day.
Okay.
So the deadline for nomination petitions, the first day that an individual could circulate petitions is August 2nd. However, I think it's only fair that we provide information to residents to let them know how it's going to work well in advance of that date, if possible. Yeah.
So it sounds like if there was discussion on May 10th and a desire to bring it forward, we could have first reading on May 24th and second reading it in June. And I think that would allow roughly 30 to 45 days of information to get out to potential candidates.
Okay.
Joanna, does that make sense?
Yep.
Okay. Well, let's do that. Great. Okay. Was that it, Corey? Can I move ahead? Okay.
That's it from my perspective.
Okay. So public invited to be heard. Do we have anyone on the phone who would like to speak to council at this time? I don't think so. I think they're all staff. Just checking. Okay. I will entertain a motion to adjourn to executive session.
So moved.
Second.
Joanna, will you call the vote, please?
Mayor Leidy?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Wilford?
Yes.
Councilmember Whitkovich?
Yes.
Councilmember Peterson?
Yes.
Councilmember Downing?
Yes.
Councilmember Brown?
Yes.
Councilmember Goff?
Yes.
Councilmember Duran Malika?
Yes.
Councilmember Escobar?
Yes.
I will close that vote, and the motion to adjourn to executive session passes unanimously.
Okay, we are adjourned. Does everyone want like 5 to 10 minutes to stretch?